podcast.
Welcome to MINDSHOCK. Today's episode is on the infamous Dogman creature. This is a cryptozoological episode. We've been doing a lot of Bigfoot episodes. Hope you listened to our last Bigfoot episode, Aquatic Bigfoot, and
Mermaid Bigfoot? Is that what it was?
Aquatic Bigfoot and Amphibious Sasquatch. This is Dogman. Do you guys know who Dogman is or no?
Never heard of it.
It's just a
Werewolf.
man-shaped dog.
It's sort of like it's almost like a cross between a werewolf and a gorilla. It's like or a Bigfoot. Like it's kind of a gorilla. It's more
why didn't they call it Dogfoot?
I don't know. But here's a good intro from dogmanencounters.com. Almost everyone has heard of Sasquatch. Not many people realize, though, a much more terrifying cryptid is stalking the forests of North America and beyond. Of course, I'm talking about Dogman. The appellation Dogman describes a group of cryptozoological beings that are large and sometimes described as looking like upright canids. So, just like Bigfoot, like there's supposedly several different species. So, what is a Dogman?
Doggy. Are you going to introduce us? Or?
Oh, yeah, I forgot. This is Bruce McGuire.
And Maxwell Powers here.
And Johnny Mills. Make sure to hit that like button if you're enjoying the podcast.
And if you haven't subscribed, make sure you subscribe.
And hit that little bell.
One type of Dogman, the canine type, is described as looking like an upright canine. Another type of Dogman, which is commonly referred to as being a type 3, is described as looking like a Sasquatch with a muzzle instead of a flat face. Eyewitnesses who have also had encounters with type 3s report seeing claws on the tips of their fingernails and toes instead of fingernails and toenails, the way a Sasquatch would have. Eyewitnesses who have had Dogman encounters also often report that the one they saw was ambulating bipedally, which is obviously an unusual trait. How long have Dogmen been around? No one knows how long Dogmen have been around due to the hieroglyphs of the Egyptian god of the underworld, Anubis, which have been found. It's possible that encounters with these beings were happening thousands of years ago. People might have been seeing Dogmen back then, and due to their inability to figure out what the origins of what they were looking at, they figured that they were looking at an evil entity from the underworld. The first documented Dogman encounter happened in 1887 in Wexford County, Michigan. Two lumberjacks reported seeing a creature they described as having a man's body but a dog's head. Dogman encounters most assuredly were happening well before that. So, what do you think about Dogman?
Any video footage?
I imagine it to be
A couple.
scarier than Bigfoot for some reason.
That's what everybody says, and more. They're much more aggressive than Bigfoot.
Because if I encounter a Bigfoot, I can imagine it being friendly too, but it can kill me at the same time. But if I see a dog-faced man thing, I'm gonna get eaten alive. That's what I think. Because I guess you associate to regular dogs. Like if you encounter a dog, it's gonna.
Almost every
not all the
eyewitness
time, though.
who encounters a Dogman says they thought the Dogman was going to kill them and eat them. To date, though, almost every encounter has resulted in the eyewitnesses walking away unharmed. Attacks seem to be very few and far between. I do know of some attacks that have occurred, though. Consequently, extreme caution should be exercised if you ever do have a Dogman encounter. The one you encounter just might prove to be dangerous. See, this is why we did our Bigfoot ghosts episode, because what if Dogmen are also some weird spiritual ethereal creatures or demons that aren't necessarily physical? So can they attack? Or are those true and then there are also physical Dogmen?
So you're saying they walk upright like a human?
Yeah, at least part of the time. Here's a supposed recording of a Dogman.
Video?
Oh.
So that background.
Well, that's just ruffling.
That
you heard
howling,
the howl, the
yeah.
weird howl. To me, that sounds a little bit more similar to a Bigfoot than a Dogman. But it's supposedly
it sounded a little different.
different?
It sounded doggish a little bit.
Yeah, it sounded a little bit more of a howl.
So how credible is that? Like, Like,
I
how
don't
do
know,
they
that's
even know
just
what they're
it's on
recording?
Dogman Encounters.
even the noises is more scary because like the Bigfoot has the whoop thing. They do that whooping thing. Like
Yeah.
whoop whoop whoop.
Yeah.
That's what Bigfoot makes that noise?
Some of them,
a lot of them.
What do you mean? What?
A lot of the
There's
recordings
footage?
are like that. Whoop 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 whoop.
There's thousands of recordings. Yeah.
Well, audio recordings.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, the video's never.
It's kind of
good.
fun. It's kind
There's
of fun
actually
to listen
more.
to.
There's more. I would say there's probably more audio than video of
Yeah.
Sasquatch or Bigfoot.
Yeah.
Well, audio is easier probably to fake too, right?
You gotta listen to that 30
I
minutes.
guess.
I'm always skeptical on the footage stuff.
So let's get into exactly when Dogman became Dogman in the modern era. So the Michigan Dogman is a cryptozoological creature first reported in 1887 in Wexford County, Michigan. The creature is described as 7 foot tall, blue-eyed, or amber-eyed bipedal canine-like animal with the torso of a man and a fearsome howl that sounds like a human scream. According to legends, the Michigan Dogman appears in a 10-year cycle. This creature was known to most of the modern world until very late in the 20th century. This creature was unknown to most of the modern world until very late in the 20th century. It is said to have been stalking the area around the Manistee River since the days when the Odawa tribes lived there. The first alleged encounter of the Michigan Dogman occurred in 1887 in Wexford County when 2 lumberjacks saw a creature which they described as having a man's body and a dog's head. So not exactly like Bigfoot. But so this is The Legend of Michigan Dogman by Zlati Meyer, Detroit Free Press. It's a very good article. Strong, lean muscles strain under dark fur. Teeth and fangs flash beneath demonic eyes. A growl emerges as he rises to stand on his hind legs, stretching to more than 7 feet tall. He is the Dogman, a legend of the vast Michigan woods, described with remarkable consistency by hunters, farmers, and even the occasional motorist in reported encounters that date back centuries. Dogman may not be as well known as some other hairy, scary creatures likely to be represented in Halloween costumes, but he is pure Michigan and will soon be coming alive on the silver screen. The cryptozoological beast, a creepy combination of the 2 species that gives the Dogman his name, is the subject of a made-in-Michigan movie coming in 2012 titled Dogman. It stars former According to Jim Starr and Cadillac native Larry Joe Campbell. You guys see Dogman yet?
Nah.
It has to do about that.
Yeah, Dogman's about Dogman.
Wait,
This is
what year?
2018 actually.
It said it was
Different one.
Oh, different one. There's a new one.
I don't
No
know if that
kidding.
has.
I want to
any-
see it.
Oh no. He finds himself in a dangerous relationship with a violent former boxer.
May 17, 2018.
Is that a comedy?
Is that...
I don't think it has anything to do with that.
Oh, the
I think
2012
it's
movie. Yeah.
A guy
Oh,
that
yeah.
just likes dogs or something.
okay, got it.
Because Michigan is largely rural and there's a lot of wide open spaces and people tend to spend a lot of time communing with the outdoors, it gives rise to these kinds of legends and stories just because of the connection people have to their natural surroundings, said Steve Cook, production director of WTCM FM 103 and AM 580 radio in Traverse City and an expert on the Dogman. The 52-year-old Traverse City resident is also the modern-day father of the creature.
I found it. 2012. It looks like they made a part 2. IMDb rating is 3.5 out of 10,
Wow, that's pretty high.
and Film Web is 1 out of 10.
Wow.
Wait, what year was
Skyrocketed to the top of my to-watch list.
What year was that?
2012, and then 2014. It looks like there's a
How
part
come I
2.
never heard of that? That's crazy.
Have you heard of every single direct-to-video horror movie, Maxwell?
I don't know. Just
There's only tens of thousands. I'm sure you've heard of all of them.
Dogman 2: The Wrath of
But
the
I mean, at
Ritter.
least a poster or a post or something.
It's probably like a low budget movie.
So you've seen a poster of every single direct-to-video horror movie? You've seen tens of
Yeah,
thousands
but
of posters?
it's just good. Yeah, but you're being very like I don't know. I'm just saying out loud, dude. Like, how come I didn't see that? Like, people say that all the time.
But why would you see it unless you looked for it?
Dude, I want to see it.
I want
I'm
to see
just-
it too.
I'm just-
All right.
Yeah, but I'm saying
In 1987, Cook wrote a song about the legend to play for listeners on April Fool's Day. But when it aired, Cook's half-fact, half-fiction ditty was no joke to many who heard it. Calls and letters began pouring in as listeners shared stories of their encounters with a similar beast. Michigan's Bigfoot, the Wolverine State's chupacabra. One of them was Robert Fortney, who said he saw it in the 1930s while fishing the Muskegon River near Paris, Michigan. When a pack of wild dogs approached him on the bank, Fortney fired a shot from his .22 caliber hunting rifle to scare them away. All the dogs scattered out of the way except a very large black dog with blue eyes. It stood and looked at him for 2 minutes. He was amazed by the fact that this thing was standing there looking at him on 2 legs, Cook said of Fortney's account. He claimed he never told anyone in his family or friends about it because he thought he was crazy. When he heard the song, he thought, wow, there's really something to this. I really saw what I saw. He claimed it up until the day he died. That was the first of a more or less avalanche of reports we received over the years. Until that point, Dogman had been local folklore. The Odawa called him Wendigo, and the French explorers a loup-garou. According to a documentary Cook later made after collecting material that included this diary entry by a Comstock resident in 1857, quote, near the barn it stood as if a man, yet it bore the countenance of a gray wolf, end quote. More modern accounts include that of a van load of hippies who said they were harassed by the Dogman near Cross Village in 1967. Police took an incident report in 1987 from people who said they saw such a creature in Luther. There are photos of something from the UP's Garden Peninsula in 1968 and Onaway in 2004, and unexplained tracks discovered in the Waterloo Recreation Area in Chelsea in the late 1980s. I made it up completely from my own imagination as an April Fool's prank for the radio and stumbled my way to a legend that goes back all the way to Native American times, Cook said. The song now goes into the station's play rotation every year around mid-September and also has been aired as far away as Arizona and Tennessee on an armed forces radio in Japan and Germany. Cook said profits of almost $60,000 generated by his song and documentary have been donated to animal rescue charities. I'm tremendously skeptical, Cook said of the legend, because I've sort of seen the way folklore becomes built from the creation of this song to what it's turned into. But I do believe people who think they saw something really did see something. I also think the Dogman provides them with an avenue to explain what they couldn't explain for themselves. Filmmaker and Ann Arbor native Rich Brower, 57, who finished shooting Dogman in September, said, every culture has a mythical woodland creature that they blame stuff on. I don't know what it is about people that they want to blame stuff on something like that. There's an inherent imagination that people have, especially when they go in the woods and start to hear things and the hair stands up on the back of their head. It might turn out to be a chickadee on a stick, but up until that moment, it was something huge.
A chickadee?
Janet Lang-Lois, a folklore expert at Wayne State University, said that as far back as Greek mythology, humans have been drawn to tales about people who cross boundaries, like centaurs. We're drawn to them and frightened by them. It points out how complicated the relationship humans have with other non-human animals or creatures. We're always fascinated by creatures. Big picture, she sees a large purpose in such legends that cross cultures and time periods. It can range from simple entertainment to other complex philosophical ideas about the universe, Langlois said. I tend to think stories, even though they're simple and incredible, are building blocks of thinking about the nature of the universe. That's kind of weird, though, because if the Greeks were really genetically engineering and mixing humans and horses, they're not making up mythology. They're just stating what happened at the time. So,
I'm curious about why people didn't generalize it to, like, werewolf, like, calling it werewolf. Like, because I saw some photos, and it could be seen as werewolf, like from movies and things like that.
Well, here's the other thing. Like, they're saying they want to blame it on a woodland creature. Bigfoot and Sasquatch has always been there. Why not blame it on that? So they're seeing something distinct with a dog or a canid type.
Because a wolf is so similar to dog look. So I don't know.
And anyway, so the werewolf, is that supposed to be like really massive, huge, big?
It depends. I think the main difference is that a werewolf will still go on its front legs, whereas the Dogman is kind of described as being more of like a man, so just walking around.
So does
on
it
his
have
legs.
Human features? Because like
some people say it has depending on which sighting, the torso is kind of humanish, but not the arms, legs, or head.
Because like dogs can walk on their hind legs
For seconds, not for minutes.
Yeah.
They could.
They do handstands too.
Yeah,
I saw a video.
I saw a dog do a backflip.
Oh yeah,
in a video.
Because there's
I saw that.
also there's this bear that walks on his two hind legs.
Well, that's the thing. Some people say. I mean, we'll get into the exact theories in a little bit, but some people think the Dogman is more bear-like because it has a snout, sort of like a dog.
Okay.
So it's more of a bear.
But
It's
did
like
you-
a Bigfoot. A Bigfoot's kind of like ape, more ape, whereas a
Yeah.
Dogman would be kind of a cross between more of a gorilla human than an actual wolf or werewolf. So I think that's why.
Did you see that video of that bear walking on his two hind legs?
I saw that.
I mean, I've seen a lot of videos of bears do that.
Really?
but
Yeah.
this one was fun,
On
like,
its hind legs though,
Yeah,
walking straight.
yeah.
walking
I've
for a
seen plenty
while,
of videos.
and
Well, I don't know
when
about a while.
When you watch this
Yeah,
video,
wow.
it looks like a man.
I've seen a dog
in
ride a
costume.
bicycle. I mean, I've seen a bear ride a bicycle.
I've seen a monkey ride a motorcycle. Not a motor. Yeah, maybe a motorcycle too.
Oh yeah, monkeys always ride bicycles.
Always. They're never not riding a bicycle.
Yep.
Let's go to
Never.
Africa and we'll see them always riding a bicycle.
Anyway, this bear is like the freakiest thing.
Yeah,
when
that
you
one,
see
that
it
one is
walking
kinda
around.
cool.
That
Yeah, I've
looks.
seen that one.
It looks like a suit. Like he's.
Yeah,
Grass
and
is
then it goes
I mean,
on
I
all
haven't seen him
fours,
do it for
and
a
then-
long period of time. Yeah, I've seen that before.
It looks so fake.
Ooh,
it
that's
looks like- it
actually
looks
the
like a-
longest one I've ever seen.
Yeah,
No, it keeps going. It's just he's. Getting
I
out of
didn't
frame.
see that one. Wow.
Yeah, if you saw that just at night, you wouldn't
I
think
could
that's
see-
a bear.
yeah.
You'd think it's like
You
a
would think,
person.
yeah, yep.
That's
Look
what
at
I'm
that.
visualizing now when we're talking about
yeah.
Dogman.
Yeah. But here's the thing, like it would still, unless you only saw it for that 1 second, some of these people have these encounters for like minutes.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, if you only saw it from a fraction of a
Look at that.
second, it also like if it's also making more of a wolf type noises instead of bear, I guess that could do it as well. But also you have to factor a lot of these hunters. If a hunter spotted it, like a hunter would be able to tell that's a bear. You know what I mean? Because they would have seen it do that for at least a second. So even if it was a bear doing it for a longer period of time, I think only someone who's never seen a bear really could make that mistake. So
Yeah.
if the sighting was by a hunter, a park ranger, or by people that normally see them, because that's cool, but it doesn't really look like a crazy werewolf.
No, it doesn't.
So
It looks like a human with a bear suit
yeah,
on,
yeah, kind of. So
which I would call a bear man or something.
Yeah.
If I saw it, like this
Yeah.
bear
Yeah,
man.
It's,
Yeah,
it's a
that's
little
true.
different.
the first known sighting of the Michigan Dogman occurred in 1887 in Wexford County when two lumberjacks saw a creature whom they described as having a man's body and a dog's head. They chased it, because even that video of a bear, it doesn't have a dog's head. So, I don't know. They chased it and cornered it when it let out an unearthly scream and stood upright. The pair left immediately and never returned.
That's what I was trying to get at with this video, though. Is like a bear could do that for minutes at a time. So maybe a dog. Dogs can do that. They
A
can walk
super
around.
giant dog the size of a
Yeah,
human.
a Great Dane or something.
It still looks like a Great Dane, though.
I know it does.
Because this one more looks like a human or even a bear with a dog head. So, I don't know. But anyway, in 1897, a farmer's body was found on his plow, apparently a victim of a heart attack. Large dog tracks surrounded the plow. Exactly 10 years later, a deranged widow woman had dreams of upright screaming dogs circling her house. Another decade later, a sheriff found a wagon with dog prints around it. No driver could be found, and the horses were nearby, dead with their eyes open. Nobody could determine their cause of death. In 1937, sailors saw a pack of upright dogs and shot one. The next year, another sailor shot another one of these dogs, but it reared up into its hind legs and locked eyes with him. In 1957, a preacher found dog claw marks 7 feet off the ground on a church door. If it was a dog, it was a mighty tall one, at least 7 feet, he reckoned, to leave marks where they scratched the door. In 1967, a van of hippies was awoken in the middle of the night by a dog man scratching on their windows. In 1977, near the village of Bel Air, a dogman was spotted at night. Near Manistee, 2 local fishermen became believers one evening at dusk when they were casting. The sun was setting in its usual spectacular fashion when they saw an animal swimming towards their boat. One man immediately thought it was his old coonhound coming to join them, but when it got closer, he realized the beast had a dog's head and a man's body and was doing a human-style English crawl instead of a dog paddle.
Wait. So this is in all of U.S. or just Michigan?
This is just Michigan. The 2 men, frightened nearly out of their wits, picked up their oars and began clubbing Dogman until the creature finally retreated. The fishermen, not wanting to appear sissies, declined to talk further about their experience. So supposedly, all of the years with reported sightings end in 7 and occur every 10 years. So
only in Michigan.
Correct. These were all in Michigan.
That's kind of weird.
But it's a local creature.
Only in Michigan though.
It's
like a local.
Well, no. Now it's been expanded. This is the original. This is like the original lore. So when he first came out with this song on the radio, these are the reports that came in. He studied these previous reports. I'm sure there were tons of other ones that don't match this, and there are now, and we'll get into them. We'll get into these other ones that are not just in Michigan. So, part of the song is, somewhere in the Northwoods darkness, a creature walks upright, and the best advice you may get is never to go out at night.
That's a lyric?
A very strange thing happened after the poem was aired on radio on April 1st, 1987, and it became obvious the story was not going to fade away. The first 2 times the song was played, there was no viewer reaction or calls. Cook and O'Malley were prepared to let the failed prank die. When the phone lines started lighting up, people were calling in asking about that weird song. Listeners asked, who did that song on the Dogman thing? When are you going to play it again? O'Malley took a call from an elderly man who stated that he was chilled to the bone after hearing the song because he had actually seen a similar creature years before. That was the first of many sightings that would pour into the station over the next few weeks. Scores of people told of stories and encounters with a creature that was very much like Cook's fabricated Dogman. Within 1 month, the legend of the Dogman became the most requested song on the air, and for a short time was added into the regular rotation of the music.
I want to hear this.
Other stories began to surface and be compared to the Michigan Dogman story. A century old, a mysterious Indian legend revealed shocking similarities. A French fur trader's diary from 1804 told of an encounter with Loup Garou. A letter from 1857 described a creature that stood upright like a man yet bore the countenance of a gray wolf. A real Dogman sighting investigated by Lake County Sheriff's Deputy Jeff Chamberlain, who was accompanied by Department of Natural Resources Officer Ron McCarty, was picked up and reported on by Mark Marantet, a reporter for the Cadillac Evening News. Then other news outlets picked up the story, and it was later fed down the Associated Press newswire, and thus was picked up by newspapers all across America. It was even mentioned as a strange coincidence in Paul Harvey's national news and comments broadcast. McCarty called the TV station WTCM, stating that he and Chamberlain had openly joked about how this sighting would fit in with the 7th-year prophecy made in the song. McCarty's voice would later appear in the beginning of the 10th anniversary version of the song, The Legend 97. Suddenly, The Legend soared into national prominence and became a hit song once again, only this time on a much larger scale. Requests for copies came in from all 50 states and around the world. Eventually, the master tape, never considered to be of real value, had been destroyed, and Steve Cook went into the studio again, this time with an upgraded keyboard, and recorded the song a second time. A few changes were made to the lyrics to update The Legend for summer. When it was finished, the second master recording was shipped to Southfield, Michigan for mass production. The first 500 copies arrived a week later and sold out in 12 days. The Legend had quickly become hot property, with record stores and radio stations across the country calling the station requesting copies. A large record company offered to record and promote the song, and Steve Cook faced the difficult decision of whether to release The Legend on a national scale or keep it local and manageable. Steve chose to keep it local. The music and lyrics were copyrighted by Mind Stage Productions. Cook's marketing and advertising company. More and more copies of the tape, which was originally priced at $3, were sold in the fall of 1987. WTCM held an art contest which allowed amateur artists the chance to submit works depicting what they thought the Dogman looked like. There were over 100 entries. Some were exceptional, but by far the most chilling and dramatic was an 11 by 17 charcoal sketch done by Brian Rosinski, who was only 23 years old at the time and never had a formal art lesson. The song was never intended to be a marketable vehicle for profit, and Cook made the decision early on that any profits earned derived from its sale would be donated to charity. The first charity was the Traverse City Cherryland Humane Society, which scored $2,500 towards drilling a new water well and the remodeling of the adult dog facility, which included a new floor tile and pens. In 2001, Cook was introduced to Brian Manley, founder of AC Paw, a no-kill animal rescue program that specializes in lost causes. AC Paw takes in animals that have been injured, abused, or neglected, or that have used up the maximum boarding time in traditional facilities and are about to be euthanized. They rehabilitate animals through a unique foster care network and eventually place them in a loving home. Cook was so impressed with the AC Paw program, he shifted all donations from the proceeds of the legend to their cause, and thus the legend of the Dogman's legacy lives on in animals in need. While the legend has never been formally distributed for airplay on other radio stations, it's been heard across the USA and the world. Many young adults grew up hearing it and remember it scaring them at summer campfire storytelling sessions. The legend has inspired movie screenplays, stage productions, numerous books, term papers, at least one master's thesis, and countless classroom projects at all grade levels.
And podcasts.
In spite of the initial belief that the song would be a radio bit designed to run one day only, interest in the legend continues to grow. Steve Cook receives 10 to 20 reported sightings each year, many supported by dramatic evidence. Perhaps the best description of the legacy of the legend came from WTCM morning host Jack O'Malley. This song has been firmly woven into the fabric of northern Michigan. It is part of the culture now, part of the folklore. The legend will be here long after we are gone. All right, so what do you guys think initially? So this was kind of like
It's freaking awesome. I want to hear the song.
an April 1st prank.
So they made it up as a song.
Yeah, I want to hear the song. Can
Well,
you play it real quick?
if you guys paid attention to the description of the article, he took real accounts and then mixed them with, like, pretending it was a creature that was out there. So he kind of mixed, it was kind of like half fact, half fiction as a prank.
Oh.
Okay. So it got popular in Michigan, and people thought.
Yeah.
Now every time people see a dog, they think it's Dogman. That's
I
why
don't know
there's so
about
many
that.
reports.
So it's just a bunch of stories weaved in and...
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like an April Fool's
Right,
prank,
right.
as if it's like a Bigfoot type
Right,
dog
right,
man. So
right.
he used the real accounts
Hmm.
and then kind of embellished them to match
Huh.
this creature. So let's look at the history of Dogman cases. So you made an interesting point about werewolves, and there's actually an interesting gravestone, Catherine Ann Cross's gravestone, and it says at the bottom of the gravestone, murdered by human wolves. And this
that.
gravestone,
What year?
1917. So here's an article about it by Roxanne Perkins Yates. This article was published December 2nd, 2014. Locust Grove, Oklahoma. Some say her body was found in pieces. Some say she was killed by the Ku Klux Klan. Some say she was murdered by werewolves. Most of the tales are unrecorded, gone, but after one look at her tombstone, you'll wonder why the epitaph reads, murdered by human wolves. What is known is that she did exist. Catherine Ann Cross was born in 1899 and died 18 years later. She, her parents, and 7 siblings moved during the Great War to Konawa, a small town that takes its name from a Seminole word meaning string of beads. It is situated in southwestern Seminole County. Oklahoma native Stephen E. Weedle strings the facts together in his short book Murdered by Human Wolves, published in 2004. Since little is known about Cross, the story is based on newspaper articles, legends, and real and imagined characters. It ends with findings from a paranormal researcher, Mary Franklin. By all accounts, Catherine Cross died an unnecessary and likely very painful death at a young age, states Weedle in the foreword to the book. Weedle has written several werewolf sagas. In this novella, a werewolf family entices friends, Elise Stone and Cross, into their mesmerizing world. Both girls become pregnant. Both die at the hands of a teacher and doctor. The book ends with an interview with Franklin. Franklin describes using electronic voice phenomena, EVP readings, in the Kenowa Cemetery. She relates that she asked suspected Cross killer in an EVP recording if he had killed Cross and if werewolves lived in Kenowa. I got a word one answer that is very plain. Several, states Franklin. News articles of 1917 reveals details of world events and brief details of the Cross and Stone murders. Front page stories in the Shawnee Daily News Herald, October 18, 1917. Issue include an account of the death of John Reed, whose horse was startled by the Rock Island passenger train. Thrown upon a fence, Reed was crushed. Also, Chicago White Sox baseball players received their winnings as victors in the World Series, $3,669 to each, and the snow fell in Amarillo, Texas for 3 hours that day. But the most startling story is of a young, beautiful Catherine Cross and the stormy upshot of her death, brought on by the supposed ghastly doings of Dr. A.H. Yates. For the second time within 60 days, Dr. A.H. Yates, a Kenowa physician, is accused of performing a criminal operation, states the story. 2 months previously, Yates and schoolteacher Fred O'Neill were charged with a similar crime that resulted in the death of a teacher, Elise Stone. It is believed that Stone had become pregnant after an affair with O'Neill. Stone's body was exhumed after Kenowa citizens insisted. An autopsy was performed at the cemetery and the resulting cause of death is listed as criminal operation, according to the Oklahoma Times, published August 29, 1917. Stone was confined in Yates's office for 4 days, and O'Neill carried meals to her. Yates claimed she died thereafter of a congestive chill. According to County Attorney A.J. Nichols, the girl would have become a mother within the next 4 months. 2 months later, Cross died. An investigation into her death began. The girl would have become a mother within the next 6 months. Yates is alleged attempted to prevent that result, says the Herald. Suspicion of Yates was described by Cross's parents in a meeting with the county attorney Nichols. The parents of the dead girl have told the whole awful story and are ready to testify to the facts on the stand. Yates was later acquitted of the Stone murder. He was charged with first-degree murder of Cross, then first-degree manslaughter, then acquitted. It is believed that O'Neill was acquitted in Stone's death and that neither man served a sentence. Were there several victims of the doctor? It is unknown. To those who believe he was the killer of Cross and maybe others, they believe Yates' sentence was carried out after death. He is buried in Kenowa Cemetery within viewing distance of Cross's haunting epitaph. Most of Cross's story is forgotten but not gone. It is said her parents made sure that the horror was etched in stone. Notes gathered later on. In an email from Weedle, he told Red Dirt Report that some of the surviving family of Cross had accused him of connecting them with the occult. I pointed out that the epitaph the family had put on the gravestone had made Catherine a public figure.
It was written out kind of weird, though.
Weedle
Did you
said,
notice that?
Yeah. Weedle was also contacted by a movie producer. He wanted to set the story in modern times, opening California with a buff female cop in a gunfight, as he said. Then somehow she'd find out she was the daughter of Catherine after coming to Oklahoma. It was ridiculous, and I refused to do the rewrite, Weedle said. Weedle said he heard that the family replaced the stone, but was not sure. So local commentators say, like locals supposedly say that she died during an abortion. And if you paid attention to the article, you would know why. Any thoughts?
No thoughts from me. Johnny Mills?
The girl that died, the Cross girl, died during an abortion.
That's what locals say, because the other...
What's with the human wolves then?
My first impression of that was they were just saying that these doctors were like evil people.
That's what I was thinking.
That
Maybe
was my impression, but
and also the way it's written on the grave, it doesn't really flow that well. It looks like it was added after the fact or something. Because it said it was like the positioning of the words. It says murdered by human. And then under human, it says wolves. It's like they added wolves after the fact or something.
Oh, I thought it was added at the same time, just from looking at it. But
well, I wouldn't do it like that.
Yeah, it looked.
Well, you're not gonna write on the graves murdered by human.
Yeah,
I know you wouldn't, but why is it written that way? It almost even looked like they added that whole section at the bottom.
Murdered by human wolves. They added that
Yeah.
entire section.
At some other point in time.
Well, this guy insinuated that the gravestone was replaced. The original either said that also or didn't say that, and only the new stone says. So
do you see what I mean by
Yes.
where it says wolves
Yes.
under humans? Like you would center it at least so it'll fit.
Or put human underneath with the wolves.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it's just not. It's so
like they-
asymmetrical, or
Yeah, they did it after. It's like almost. We didn't plan this out right.
yeah,
It's kind of.
the format was.
yeah, but I don't know if they were rich enough to really like. They
But look at everything else. It's all perfect and symmetrical.
I know, but with the size of the stone, I mean, I don't know. It does look like it's been replaced. It doesn't look like the original one, so who knows?
Yeah, there's different. You could find a bunch of photos on Google Images.
So, but the thing is, there were also like local
still
stories,
weird, though, even
local
if it's not
stories,
alive.
local legends, like Native American legends about werewolves. Like it's not like it was just the gravestone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But- Anyways, let's move on. In the summer of 1937 or 1938, depending on your source, in Paris, Michigan, Robert Fortney was attacked by 5 wild dogs and said that one of the 5 walked on 2 legs. 17-year-old Robert Fortney was fishing on the banks of the Muskegon River near Paris, Michigan, when a pack of what appeared to be large feral dogs emerged from the woods. That must have been real scary. Fortney remained silent, but the sensitive noses of the dogs quickly picked up his scent. Since he had been small game hunting earlier in the day, Fortney had his loaded rifle nearby. As the dogs approached, they assumed the group posture of a pack on a hunt. Fortney picked up the gun and fired a shot into the air. The dogs cringed and turned to slink back into the forest, all except one, a huge black dog with unusual eyes. They were blue, said Fortney. What kind of a dog has blue eyes? The big dog and Fortney considered each other for a long moment, less than 10 feet separating them. Fortney fired another shot over the head of the strange dog. Then, to Fortney's shock and amazement, the black dog stood up on 2 legs and cast a glare that sent shivers down his spine. It reared up on its hind legs and stared at me, said Fortney in a phone interview in 1987. It may be that I was just scared, but I swear that dog was smiling at me. Reports of similar creatures also came from Allegan County in the 1950s and in Manistee and Cross Village in 1967. So what do we think of this account? This is one of the first accounts that was phoned in since the song came out.
So when you described the story, when you were reading it, it made it seem like the dogs were far. And then you said they were 10 feet away from each other. So I was trying to figure out how the hell did he know, like, his eyes were blue.
Well, if it was a gigantic dog with gigantic eyes, I mean, I don't know.
So this one was different from the other dogs?
Yeah, he said this was the big one that didn't run away after the gunshot.
And it stood up.
Yeah, the others were just normal dogs, normal size. No thoughts, Maxim? And the song on the radio kind of jarred his memory. So basically, he didn't tell anybody until the song came out. All right, let's move on. Big Rapids, Michigan, 1961. When I was a boy, my father was the night watchman at a manufacturing plant located in a rural area between Big Rapids and Chippewa Lake, Michigan. Our house, which if I remember right, was a perk of the night watchman job, was across the street from the factory. The plant building was right next to a large wilderness area of state land. At the time, it was simply known as the Haymarsh, but now it is officially called the Haymarsh State Game Area. We didn't understand it at the time, but Dad was always very skittish about letting us play outside after dark. He would sometimes talk about hearing coyotes or bears roaming around in the Haymarsh when he was walking the perimeter of the building at night. One night in the summer of 1961, Dad walked back to the house to sit on the porch and have a cup of coffee and a sweet roll. He had a good view of the entire plant property. He saw some movement near a chain link fence behind the building. This was approximately 3 a.m., so he felt quite sure this person wasn't there by accident. He drew his gun and watched for a few minutes. That's when he noticed this was not a person at all, but something much taller. He said it appeared to be covered in brown-gray hair. It had very broad shoulders and a powerful chest. It alternated between walking on 4 legs, then standing up on 2. He said it seemed to be looking for something along the driveway. He said later he couldn't quite believe what he was seeing. He quietly moved into the house and grabbed his Kodak Signet 35mm camera, which was his pride and joy. At this point, I should mention that Dad was quite a photography buff. His father had owned one of the first camera stores in Ohio, and Dad got the shutterbug from Grandpa. As he stepped back onto the front porch, the creature moved slowly across the driveway, directly under the lights. He adjusted the camera shutter for a long exposure, held it as still as he could, he said he was shaking pretty bad by then, and snapped a picture. I've enclosed a print of it in this letter. Dad said a few seconds later the thing dropped back down to all fours.
Wait, you got a picture of it?
Oh, can I
It's
see?
dark.
What?
Is there an?
How do you look it up?
Can
What do
you
you
see?
1961 Big Rapids, Michigan Dogman. Dad said a few seconds later the thing dropped back down to all fours and slowly moved off into the woods to the left of the picture. He sent a print to the local newspaper and sent copies to several magazines. One that I think was called Mysterion published the photo in their spring issue of 1962. Dad had a copy of the magazine for years, but it was misplaced after he passed away. I still have the negative strip that contains this image if you would like to have someone examine it. I also still have Dad's Kodak Signet. I haven't shot any pictures with it for several years, but I'm pretty sure it still works.
That's interesting.
I'm seeing the picture now. Kind of hard to make out what the heck that is.
I can see the image. I can see the arms and the legs. He's kind of like standing right behind the pole. It's huge. I'd be scared.
I'm still having trouble.
Is that a video? What's that?
Yeah.
So here's a close up, but
Yeah,
that's what you're looking at.
that's what we're looking at. Yeah, it's still hard for me to believe. Like,
What, the Dogman?
if it's like a real.
It's a shame he didn't take the picture when it was out from behind the post. Although the post makes it harder to fake, especially 1961.
And he said he still has the negatives.
Yeah. So so that would have been harder to fake. But I wish he had taken more than one picture, like one there
Well,
and then one when he was crossing the street in better lighting.
And also that was probably printed, that image back in 1961. If he still has the negative printed out
they
now,
can make
the
a
quality is like way
yeah,
better.
Yeah.
So
They
we
should
could.
definitely do that. What do you think, Maxwell?
When did he mention that whole? He has the negative, and was that a while back or? Because like, wouldn't you go and get more printouts just in case you lose that negative?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm guessing these mostly came out after the 87 radio song. So this is 1968. Oh, wait, no. He said Mysterion published the photo in their spring issue of 1962.
Oh crap!
So this was officially published in
So
1962.
a year later.
Yeah, it took a year. Because it says he sent it to the local newspaper and copies to several magazines. I guess none of them they said one that I think was called Mysterion published the photo in the spring issue of 1962. Let's find out if that's true.
Hit like if you enjoy the podcast.
I can't find this magazine. Actually, there's Mysterion online. Yeah, there's Mysterion online. Let's move on. 1968. This is the McHale photograph. So it kind of looks like a bear, I guess, but they said it was a dog.
How do you?
Oh, that's
It's from
interesting.
a Polaroid. So it kind of looks like a bear, but supposedly it was a dog. Garden Peninsula, Upper Peninsula, Michigan summer 1968. Dee McHale was camping with her sister. She was going to photograph a group of deer when a large black dog caught her attention. It stood up on its hind legs facing the deer. Dee said that the dog stood on its legs for 2 full minutes. When the deer scattered, it rushed off on all fours. Some people think the photograph was that of a wolf, who are known to stand on its hind legs sometimes when stalking prey, although only for seconds, not
really?
minutes.
I didn't know that.
I didn't know they did that. That's interesting.
That kind of.
That's kind of cool that they do that. They get a bird's eye
Yeah.
view.
So there's not too much information on that one, but to me, it doesn't really look like a crazy dog man, Bigfoot type beast. It
Yeah.
almost looks like a bear. But I
Yeah, it
guess if
looks
she
like a
said it
bear.
was a big dog, it was a big dog. It still doesn't
Yeah.
look that humanoid though.
Yeah.
The photograph looks completely real,
Yeah, it does. That photo did look real. I'm just looking at examples.
and it
of
also
wolves.
does not look like a Bigfoot type dog man. It just looks like either a really large dog or a bear. But if she said it was a dog, I guess it was a large dog or wolf.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because like a wolf, if it was on its hind legs, they'll probably hit like 5 foot something.
Yeah, and that's about what that photograph looked like.
Yeah.
Or even if it was 6, I mean, it could have been a real big one. It's not the most. I don't think that is the most mysterious thing in the world.
No. It looked kind of like a German Shepherd almost, or like a.
I mean, to me, it looked almost like a bear, though. I don't know.
It looks like a bear. It looks like that video
All right,
that we just
let's
watched.
go to 1986. So this is near Manistee, Michigan, and this was reported February 2006. This happened in the fall of 1986 when I was stationed in Manistee. I left the Manistee Army recruiting station late and was driving home to Ludington. I always took the back road as US 31 takes too long. It was nearly fall and was dark. The deer was out, so I had to be careful while I was driving. This was farm country, and the deer graze in the fields. I saw a reflection of my headlights off to the left of me in a darkened field. They appeared to be eyes, but they stood too high to be deer and too far apart also. I saw it run across, and the leap was incredible. It leaped only 3 times, far greater a leap than any animal could, and leaped across the 2-lane road easily. It was too dark to see a shape, but from the position from the eyes, there is no animal that it could be. I know this was not a deer, and from what I could tell, it was a lot taller than me. I am 6'2". I do not know if anybody has or had any experience like this. As for the color of its eyes, somehow the color yellow comes to mind. Remember that this was almost 20 years ago when I saw that. I am an outdoorsman, although in recent years I have not been out, and no animals. So when I saw that, it surprised me of the leaping ability and the eyes. I do remember that they were not like any animal eyes I have ever seen before, and the height of the creature was a lot higher than any animal. I do remember that I saw both eyes as if it was looking at me the whole time. That, along with the leaping ability, is what I will never forget. And this is the Ray Greenway sighting. What do you think, Maxwell? A dog can leap across a 2-lane road?
Deer
That's
could
interesting. I want to see that.
deer could jump pretty far though, or
How far can a
hop
deer
around.
jump?
Probably
I
12
could double
feet.
check.
I mean,
Probably 12
I've
feet.
seen them make some pretty good leaps too. Yeah, they can
Oh
leap
yeah,
pretty far.
gazelles will go over.
But I
like
mean, if this is an
cars and shit.
outdoorsman that knows his wolves and deer, especially if he'd been hunting deer, like if you hunt deer, you know how deer move. You're not gonna mistake a wolf for a deer, are you?
No.
So, I don't know.
Average whitetail can jump over an obstacle that is. It says the average whitetail can jump over an obstacle that is not 5, 7, or 8 feet high, but 12 or more feet high.
A deer can do that?
Yeah,
A 12-foot obstacle?
Yeah.
That's pretty high. I don't know if I've ever seen that. That's twice the size of a man.
Whitetail deer being able to jump 15 feet high. So,
So-
if they could jump 15 feet high, they could
2.5, so they can jump over 2.5 men.
look this video. This deer jumping a 6-foot fence. And that's like a baby one. Oh, that looks like a smaller deer.
Yeah, but there's a hill that
I know
there's
there was,
yeah.
but that
That was like that's a 3-foot bump. Not to mention that that lead up to it, like it was galloping. It was a
I know.
galloping deer. So if a wolf is just like hunched near the edge of the road and then it just shoots straight over a 2-lane.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing about this sighting though. This guy's an outdoorsman, so
he knows,
he's saying that it was taller than him,
Mhm.
and he's 6'2", and it was a lot taller, like a lot. So I don't know what to make of that one. Let's move on. 1987, Sparta, Michigan. One weekend, back around the fall of 1987, my 2 best friends and I were staying at my family's cabin, which is not far from the small town of Sparta, about 20 minutes north of Grand Rapids. My 2 friends left to have dinner while I stayed behind at the cabin. Following the dinner, the men headed back towards Sparta and the cabin. What happened next would shock and disturb them for years. It was dark, and they were on a rural road. Suddenly, both of them saw something standing by the side of the road. In the headlights of the car, it appeared to be a human-like figure covered in gray fur. As they got closer and past the figure, both of them got a very good look at it. It was the size of a man, stood on 2 legs. It was covered head to toe in gray fur and had a wolf-like face. It even raised its hands and seemed to snarl at them as they drove by. They said it looked like a werewolf out of a Hollywood movie. My 2 friends didn't dare stop. They continued driving, and of course they were peppering each other with questions. Did you see that too? it was a dog? Was that someone dressed up in a costume? And so on. As they were having this animated conversation, they passed by the sign that says "Welcome to Sparta" and drove through the main street and continued on out of the town in the direction of my cabin. Their conversation about what had just happened continued. When both of them looked up to see the same "Welcome to Sparta" sign again, followed by the same main street they had just driven through only moments ago, they hadn't stopped or turned around. They had been traveling in the same direction on the same road, but somehow, without any noticeable interruption in their journey, they had somehow been sent backwards several miles. Up until this point, it would be easy to dismiss this event as someone playing a joke. However, the time displacement characteristic is what sets this encounter apart. While such things are well documented in UFO and alien abduction stories, it's something we've not seen before in Dogman sighting reports. Andy continues, I remember when they finally showed up at my cabin, they arrived no later than what I expected them to, around 9 p.m. or so. And I remember how animated they were about their strange encounter, but I just assumed they had seen a large dog and were telling me an embellished story in order to get a laugh. But 20 years later, both of them still insist this was no joke. I have no idea what to make of this story. Maybe it was just some teenagers in a werewolf costume playing pranks. And did my friends really experience lost time afterwards? Or did they just make some wrong turns on their drive and didn't notice because they were talking and distracted? I have no idea, but I would like to know if anyone else has seen similar things in the Sparta area. If it was that kind of, like, could it have been a costume? How often do kids in werewolf costumes play pranks?
I mean,
just randomly on the side of the road. Like, you'd have to figure out where they would park or where they came from, because you can't just go out into the middle of the wilderness in a werewolf costume.
What year was this again?
This sighting was 1987, so this came out, I guess this was right after the song. So they could have made it up.
Yeah, so it could, it's a possibility that somebody could have been dressed up just to, like, mess around.
In 87, yeah. It depends exactly where it was, because if it's that far out of town, though, are you really going to go that far? And then, I don't know. Maxwell probably would.
Wait, do what? You got my attention.
All right, let's move on. 1993, Reed City, Michigan. The area around Reed City, Michigan has been a hotbed of Dogman activity. This report details an event that occurred nearly 20 years ago, but the witness remembers it like it was yesterday, and it is unshakable in her story. Her name is Courtney, and her encounter took place during the winter of 93 to 94. Courtney was a teenager at the time and was sneaking cigarettes behind her parents' home near Todd Lake, northeast of Reed City. The sun was setting on a clear, cold winter day. Courtney was facing a large abandoned barn on the property next door. The barn has always kind of spooked me. It was filled with rusty old equipment. The outer planks were all rotten, and it sagged and leaned in every direction. My dad said to stay away as the whole thing could collapse. On that evening, I was standing about 50 feet from the barn and saw sunlight coming through the gaps in the siding. Courtney took her eyes off the barn for a few minutes, then something caught her attention again. There was some movement. The light flickered, but I couldn't really tell what it was. Then it turned its head back and looked straight at me. It was at least 6 feet tall, if not more. It was dark-colored, and it had a dog-like appearance, pointy nose, and really big pointy ears. Courtney dashed into her house to grab a flashlight. When she returned outside, she shined it toward the barn door, but the animal was no longer there. She walked closer to the barn to look for tracks in the heavy snow. When she didn't see any, she realized the creature might still be inside and ran back to the safety of the house. She never saw the creature again. She later talked to a neighbor who had seen something, the size of a buffalo, but the shape of a dog. In the same barn, a few months before Courtney's encounter, the neighbor said she had been so frightened she was near hysterics for days. Her father had taken his gun and searched the barn but found nothing there. At the time of these events, neither of the girls had heard of the legend song and did not know about the Michigan Dogman legend until years later. Did you guys hear that?
Yeah.
Maxwell paying close attention?
I just heard years later.
So supposedly she didn't know about the song.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the other witnesses said they heard the song and that's what sparked their memory. And she didn't know even about anything about the Dogman until years later after this sighting. So supposedly this sighting happened in 1993.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know when this was reported, but maybe in 97 when they kind of did the 10-year anniversary of the song, she might have reported it at that point.
Yeah.
Even though the song came out before this sighting of hers, she didn't know about it, allegedly. Like in a lot of these cases, it's like, why would they lie? Like, I don't know. Or she just saw a really gigantic dog that stood on its two legs for a second. People say it kind of looks like a man, though. Like when I see a wolf, it doesn't really look like a man. Like a bear sometimes, from a distance, a standing bear could possibly look like a gigantic humanoid. But a dog standing on its hind legs doesn't really look like a man, does it?
Nah.
Let's move on. 1994, also of note, like a lot of these sightings are not years that end in a 7. And they're not 10 years apart. So that we're just looking at random sightings here. 1994, Waters Meet. This report comes to us from an anonymous contributor who grew up in Sheboygan County, but spent many summers camping on family property in Michigan's Upper Peninsula. This encounter took place in the area of Waters Meet, home of the famous Paulding Lights phenomenon. Oddly enough, the Paulding Lights are also known as the Dog Meadow Lights. I was 13, had just gotten new rollerblades for Christmas, and since the main road where our property sits is paved, I couldn't wait to ride around. I went blading by myself and stopped to rest for a second. On this road, the woods are so thick, there's not much space between the road and the woods in most parts, and I remember seeing trees pushed down on the road that my dad said was done by bears. He was an avid bear hunter. Again, with like a lot of these people, if they know bears, they know dogs, like they've seen them their whole life, are they really going to be... It just doesn't seem likely.
Yeah.
Like this isn't like a New York City tourist that came out out to the woods for a day. If that was the case, then yes. But
what if they're just so used to how these animals, work? Like a bear, you wouldn't see a bear standing up on. But then, what if a bear were to be standing up?
it still looks like a bear. Still looks like a bear. But anyway, I remember not hearing any of your normal sounds of nature, not even birds. The air was still and the sky would be pure dark in not too long. I was deciding to turn back when I heard a rustling behind me and something emerged from the left side of the road. I assumed it was a deer and paused and made myself as quiet as I could so I could watch it, and slumped down on my stomach in the middle of the road. It was about 600 feet ahead of me. When I got myself settled in the road to watch it and looked up, I realized what I was looking at wasn't a deer. It was on all fours with gray-brown fur. At first, I feared the worst, thinking a bear had caught my scent, until I saw its outline and color. I thought I was looking at a dog until I realized the face was too primitive, like a fox or a coyote's. At this point in my life, I had never seen a wolf in real life, and it was too far for me to make out the face exactly. The Michigan Department of Natural Resources has always recognized that wild wolves still roamed an Upper Peninsula, although they were thought to be in very limited numbers, and only in extremely remote areas. It is conceivable this witness was seeing one of these wolves, but then something very strange happened. It extended its front legs and in the slowest, longest seconds of my life, stood up on its hind legs, sniffed the air, walked for about 5 steps, then got back down on all fours and walked to the other side of the woods, then disappeared. I don't remember how long I laid in the middle of the road, staring in the empty space. I saw this thing stand like a human. I remember my jaw hanging down as low as it could and a pool of drool on the cement under it. It finally clicked in my mind that perhaps I should rollerblade my butt back to camp as quickly as I could. The witness reports that while the creature never stalked or pursued her, she slept very little during the rest of the family camping trip. She never told anybody about what she had seen, fearing she would be ridiculed. At the time of the sighting, she had never heard of the legend song and would not until 2004. She has moved to Southern California in 2008 and has no interest in camping ever again. So this goes to your point, Maxwell. You had mentioned before if people are traumatized by sightings of Bigfoot or whatnot.
Yeah.
So she apparently was traumatized by this sighting pretty severely.
So she never shared it until, right? She never talked about it until later. How old is she?
This occurred in 1994. This was a 13-year-old.
Oh my god.
So she heard this. She hadn't heard the song until 2004.
13. Jeez.
Rollerblading was the jam back then, right?
That must have been rough. Although I think a 13-year-old would be more open about sharing, because she hasn't.
Unless, well, some
'cause
kids don't want to be make fun of it. Like maybe she thought she didn't tell anybody, so
Yeah.
she thought they'd think she was crazy or something. Especially certain parents, like they don't want to hear anything.
Yeah, I guess
It depends on
the
the
way it
parents,
brought
too.
up, yeah.
So let's move on to 2001, Alpena, Michigan. My dad and I have a story to tell about our encounters with the Dogman. My dad's story took place in the mid-70s. There is a cemetery behind the Alpena High School and a wooded area behind that. There are many trails that run through here. In this area is a place called the Sandies, where all the young kids would go and party. My dad and two of his buddies were in a canoe in broad daylight, paddling from the Sandies around the back of the cemetery. The banks of the river are 10 to 12 feet high in places, and some trails run right to the edge. The three of them saw what looked to be a big dog running behind them on the trail. They didn't pay much attention to it until they heard a splash. When they looked, it was swimming after them. Then it went from a dog paddle to the chest and front legs coming out of the water and wading after them. They decided right then not to wait around to see what it was. Honestly, I thought it was BS at the time, and I'm still not sure even to this day if it was something they had been smoking or drinking. Then, around 2001 to 2002, I was leading some friends through the Sandies trails. I used to like taking people out there without a flashlight and tell them my dad's story to freak them out. The girls were freaked out before we even got into the woods, so I decided not to scare them that night. In the river are several small islands connected by a small sliver of land. At the time, there were 3 such islands chained together, and I took them through to the last one, which was planted with pines in nice even rows. I was the first one back there, about 30 seconds ahead, when one of the girls got her foot hung up on something. As I was going back to help her, there was a spot where the trees made a sort of roof effect, which is really cool looking at night with the moon shining through. At that point, I saw something. I'm not sure what it was, but it sent me running out double time. When my buddy saw my face, he didn't say a word. He just followed, both of us dragging the girls behind us. When he asked me later why I came out in such a hurry, I told him it was because I thought I had seen something at the other end of the island walking through the trees that was very tall and not likely human. He may not have believed me, but he never questioned it either. I'm still not sure what I saw. It could easily have been that I scared myself with Dad's story and was seeing things, but I know this. I still don't like the dark, and even though I love hunting, I hate going out before the sun comes up during deer season. Weird story. Same place, though. Do dogmen stalk that area? No thoughts on that account? Too general?
It's just a dog.
2006, near Lansing, Michigan. On May 6, 2006, I was driving back to my girlfriend's house, who lives around Lansing, Michigan. I was coming back from the store, and she lives out in the country, completely isolated, so the only way to get there is to go down dirt roads that are surrounded by fields. Anyways, so I was driving, and I saw something moving on this little hill that was right on the side of the road, so I stopped because if it was a deer, I didn't want to hit it, and then all of a sudden, a human-like hand, except much larger than a normal man's hand, reached over the edge of the hill, and this huge silhouette came into view. It was much larger than a normal man, and it had a wolf-like face, and its eyes reflected in my headlights. I just sat there and looked across the field on the other side of the road, and then it just very calmly turned its head and looked right at me. I froze out of fear, and we sat, locked in each other's stares for about 20 seconds. And then it started to move down the hill, so I hit the gas and flew past it. And when I got to the stop sign, I stopped and looked in the rearview mirror, and it was sitting in the middle of the road just looking at my car. And I took off again, and as I was going, I looked back again, and it moved very calmly into the other field. I've never been so scared in my life. After I got to my girlfriend's house, me, her, and her mom went back to the spot, and the creature was gone. This happened between Lansing and a small town of... The size of these creatures is pretty interesting. If these people are reporting accurately, it seems like this is a very large canid humanoid. Or they're not reporting accurately. Which one is it?
I don't know. Some people exaggerate, some people are completely accurate.
Okay, so the latest sighting we're going to go over is 2007, Bendon, Michigan.
I just don't like that it's all in Michigan.
But it's not. This is just what we're going over.
I know, but how a lot of them are from there, though.
Well, in our next couple episodes, we'll be going through the dogmen from the other area. Well, it mentioned that, like, in ancient Egypt, they were doing humanoids with dog heads. So we'll go into
and they ended
theories
up in Michigan.
Yeah. This sighting report is told secondhand by the brother-in-law of the witness. The witness is a prominent person in local government and wishes to remain anonymous. The situation started last Saturday night around midnight when he was coming home from a friend's house in Benzonia and taking the back way home to Traverse City. He stated that while traveling down Cinder Road, several miles outside of the town of Bendon, he observed a pair of eyes reflecting off his headlights ahead of him. Thinking that it was probably a deer alongside of the road, he began to slow down. As he got closer, however, he stated that the object was much larger and much darker than a deer. He said that by the time he had slowed to around 30 miles per hour and was at that point several hundred feet from the creature, which still hadn't moved. As he approached further, he stated that the only way he could describe the creature was being similar to a very large, dark wolf. However, he observed that the thing wasn't on 4 legs but was upright, his back 2 legs standing near a road-killed deer. He estimated that the creature stood a little over 6 feet tall and had very dark fur. He stated that by now he was going slow enough to bring his truck to a stop in the road and observed the creature, which had not yet moved and was still staring at him. He told me that for a brief second he believed that the object was a giant stuffed animal put there as some kind of a joke due to the fact that he had never seen anything like this in his life, and that he was able to drive up on it as close as he was without it having moved an inch. He told me, however, that before he could finish that thought, the creature then dropped to all fours and sprinted across the road and disappeared into the woods on the other side of the roadway. He told me that he stayed frozen in his seat for a minute, wondering in the middle of the road of what the heck had just happened. I jokingly asked him if he had been drinking that night, and with a deadly serious face he stated no, whatever that was, it was for real. As perplexed as he was that night over what he had seen, he was deathly afraid to go wandering into the woods to investigate further. He said that in using a flashlight, he observed an animal's tracks leading into the woods on the opposite side of the road and was fortunate enough that night to have his digital camera with him. He showed me a photograph of the paw print, which he said appeared to be about 7 or 8 inches long.
That picture's like an inch.
So 7 to 8 inch paw print.
And what is that? A shotgun shell in there?
What
In
is
the
that?
middle?
What is that a picture of? I don't
The
get
paw print of the Dogman. 7 to 8 inches. That's pretty big. Look, that's
that's
pretty
huge.
big for a dog, right?
Yeah,
or
that's
even
crazy.
a wolf. Unless he faked. That whole thing is fake, but he had another picture of the same paw print where he placed a shotgun shell in the middle for its scale. He told me that he was lucky that the side of the road was so soft because he wasn't willing to go any farther than 2 or 3 steps away from the door to his truck to get a picture. I inquired if the animal had made any sounds before it disappeared, and he said that it did not hear. And he said that he did not hear it make any noise, and were it not for the picture, he would have thought that he had imagined the whole thing. I asked him if it could have been a bear, and he stated absolutely not. He bear hunts every year in the Upper Peninsula, so he obviously knows what bears look like up close. That's his story, believe it if you like. If I didn't know him as well as I do and hadn't seen the pictures, I would have said that he was out of his mind. I've heard the song and know some of the stories, but always believed it was just for entertainment value. After this happened, though, I'm looking at all of this under a whole new light.
That was his friend.
Yes, who's a prominent member in local government, so he didn't want to give his name.
It's interesting.
All right, so those are all the sightings. And I'm going to close with an article, very interesting article from February 5th, 2015. Woman says, I saw interaction between Dogman and Bigfoot. A woman claims she observed the interaction between 2 groups of Bigfoot and Dogman creatures in the forest of an undisclosed location in the United States. Christina Della Parker, author of 100 Bigfoot Nights, told Cryptozoology News that the recurring sightings of Dogman and Bigfoot took place during November and December of 2012. I saw them together at night a few times. Then at first I thought they were all Bigfoots, she said, but they were more animal-looking with protruding faces. At first, says Parker, she thought they were young Bigfoots because she was initially used to seeing Dogman individuals exclusively during daytime. So apparently she's got experience seeing a whole bunch of Dogman and a whole bunch of Bigfoot
So,
separately.
Does she have a collection of photographs?
Yes.
She does.
so-
Well,
really?
hold on. So this is her story. So she's used to seeing Bigfoot and Dogman separately. And then on a few of these occasions, she saw them interacting. So this is what this article is about. Very interesting.
So that's a great way to self-promote your book.
Exactly. Yes.
So that's how she's
But let
able
me
to get
finish.
on the news.
But let me finish the article. They like to sun themselves usually every 3 days or the next sunny day after a rain. But according to the woman, this time was different. The two unproven animal species were sharing the same space in what she says looked like some sort of symbiotic relationship. I got the impression they were tolerant of each other, although the Bigfoot seemed in charge. It reminded me of the relationship between hippos and crocodiles. The hippos rule the river and they share the same territory, but both don't want to mess with each other out of fear of being harmed, she explains. I watched them as they peeked from the bush. They were visibly bold, easier to make out than the Bigfoots. They were very unorganized when they moved. They moved as individuals without cover from the others. If one wanted to move, he would just move. They were also not experts in hiding, although they too try to camouflage. Some like to stand in the V part of the trees trunks and weave dead brush around them. The way they weaved the brush reminded me of a spider web. They were very alert to their surrounding and seemed to notice me when I tried to photograph them. That's when they would freeze, point, and stare. Parker described the animals as being the size of a man with pointy ears placed on the top of their heads.
They actually know how to point? Is that what you said?
That's what she said. Their bodies were reportedly covered in a brown patchy hair and had human-like fingers with thick claws. I can't be sure of how many fingers they had because they seemed to have an additional appendage. It was on top of their hand along the wrist area. They liked to point by raising their arm and extending it in front of them, and they would use their index finger. They carried their arms a certain way with their elbows against their sides and forearms in front with the palms facing down. The smallest I could see were about 2 feet tall. I think they were babies, says the witness. They must communicate, but I don't know how, possibly through sense or nonverbal language. She believes that urban expansion is the reason these two purported species have been forced to tolerate each other. One of the best places to live and the fastest growing city in the state, they cut large sections of forest, and with the closing of the mines, I had the feeling it was these circumstances that brought them together. Last year, she released a video of what she called a Dogman beast. The shaky film is about 17 seconds long and depicts a dark-haired animal with canine-like pointy ears seemingly walking on 2 legs. I shot this video from my bedroom window while standing on a chair. We were getting ready to leave and I was waiting for my husband. I know it is not the best video and my son told me not to post it, but it is important to our story, she continued. I had the camera with me, so I decided to shoot a video of the forest. I could not see the creature because of the distance. I was shooting randomly. Later that night, I watched the video and noticed him right away. I recognized the Dogman immediately. Parker says she doesn't know where the Dogman creatures live, but she suspects they could be taking shelter inside a few old mines in the area, only venturing into the forest to gather food such as raccoons, dogs, cats, rabbits, and other small forest animals. Many of the animals she was familiar with, she explains, have now gone missing. And it appears that food is not the only thing these purported beasts are after. The author believes these dangerous animals are highly intelligent and capable of more than just hunting. Some appeared to be wearing ornate objects. They liked shiny things, while others wore trophies of animal skins on their head, neck, and shoulders. The really dangerous-looking ones carried weapons or metal objects in their hands. Everything about them screamed dangerous. She did not take footage of these events. The Dogman is a cryptid reputed to live in the northwestern quadrant of Michigan's Lower Peninsula, although other sightings have been reported in other locations. The creature was first spotted in 1887 by 2 lumberjacks who described the creature as having a human body and a dog's head. Parker, who says she has been dealing with a group of Bigfoots around her property for years, also commented on the similar claims made by another woman last week during a phone call to a nightly radio show. She sounded a little confused. When things happen over a period of time, it is nearly impossible to verbally express them in chronological order. Our mind jumps around as you try to remember all the things that occurred. You always sound confused. That's what made her story believable. I used to sound the same way when trying to explain things to people. That is why I wrote the books, she said. Most of the occurrences, she explains, are Bigfoot creatures approaching the house at night. Occasionally, as shown on some of her videos, you can see the alleged primates throwing orbs at their house from a patch of woods located across the street. But apparently, Sasquatches and the Dogmen are not the only oddities Parker reported taking place at this unknown location. Ghostly images and strange lights showing up at night seem to be quite common at the Parkers. I am keeping the location secret because we live in a housing tract 5 minutes from the freeway, surrounded by houses and families. The last thing I would want to happen is hunters running around at night shooting between the houses or people harassing my family, she said. Suspected by investigators to be located in California, this clandestine paranormal urban oasis remains eerily similar to its rural cousin, the Skinwalker Ranch in Utah, and their East Coast relative, the Bridgewater Triangle in Massachusetts. Last year in November, country singer Dale Boswell released a Dogman photograph reportedly taken by an anonymous man. I can't see anything in that photograph. So it's reportedly taken by an anonymous man. Supposedly it's Dogman.
Yeah, I think she's just full of it.
You don't like her shaky video?
I can see.
I didn't see any videos.
I saw some videos. It's just movement behind trees. Could be a bear. I
think she's just trying to get her name out there to sell some books. I don't know. That's what it seems like.
An interesting article, though. Bigfoot and Dogman. Because some people, like, my initial impression was, how is a Dogman not a Bigfoot? Like, what if they're just seeing Bigfoot? But apparently there are differences.
I like how the Dogman developed technology. They were wearing sheep, right? They were wearing leather stuff.
Was she talking about the Dogman or the Bigfoot?
Or Bigfoot. And then they had weapons, too, right? They developed weapons.
That's
something
so
like that.
fake. Oh my
Very
God.
interesting. Very interesting. So, in the next episode, we'll get into different theories of what the Dogman is, biological creature, some evolutionary possibilities. But that's our introduction into the cryptid known as the Dogman. Final thoughts, Maxwell?
No final thoughts.
Johnny?
I don't believe
I want to see
in it.
that movie.
So you think the people were just seeing a big dog standing on two legs?
I don't know what they were seeing, but especially that last one, that last story just pissed me off. Just making crap
skeptical
up.
Johnny.
Well, it's fun. It would be really funny if what she was saying was true, though.
Show it to me, and I don't believe it. But too much to just go off of words. I can make stuff up like that too.
Oh yeah, no, I'm not saying it happened. I'm just saying it'd be
yeah.
funny if it did, and she was telling the truth.
It would be funny.
But
If I saw that,
yeah.
I don't know. If you just see this dog man walking around with like shield and like a sword.
In your backyard?
yeah,
She
like
said
metal.
there's houses and families around. So like why are they not saying so
Exactly.
it'd be interesting. Well,
I just can't see
yeah.
them developing any metal pieces.
so you don't think they're jumping from their other dimension or Hollow Earth?
I mean, that's probably more. Yeah, that's a better explanation.
The Hollow Earth explanation. So if you like our podcast, donate to our PayPal. You can check the link in the description. Check out our social media sites, Facebook, Reddit, Twitter.
Like the podcast if you enjoyed this.
And
Subscribe,
share.
hit the bell.
And we will check you guys out next time. This is Bruce McGuire signing off.
Natural powers.
And Johnny Mills.
Have a good night.
See ya.
Welcome to MINDSHOCK. This is Maxwell Powers.
And this is Bruce McGuire.
And this is Johnny Mills.
This is Dogman Part 2. What is the Dogman? We're going to go over different theories of what the Dogman can be. In our previous Dogman episode, we went over a bunch of different accounts and witness testimonies of different veracities. I think Johnny Mills thought they were all 100% concrete, right?
Soft concrete. Hasn't hardened yet.
So you're saying their accounts could possibly get hardened with sufficient evidence that has not happened yet.
Too much water was added, so it's never going to harden.
Okay.
There's a stream of water going in.
I thought some of them were pretty legit, and I think all of them, the person saw something. To me, it looks, for some reason, just from some of the pictures, it looks more bear to me than wolf. Like,
Yeah, some of them
it just
did.
does
A lot
not
of-
look like a wolf to me.
Yeah, even
It looks like a bear. Does not look like a dog.
Especially after seeing the video that we watched of the bear, like walking around.
Yeah.
It looked exactly like that.
But I don't want to tell, like, I don't want to say all these expert hunters don't know the difference between a dog and a
Yeah.
bear. I mean, I'm sure they know the difference, and maybe in person it looked more like a dog. Maybe it was a big dog or a big wolf. or a dog man.
Yeah.
So, let's examine the giant wolf. Could it be an unknown species of wolf?
That walks on his hind legs sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like they walk on their hind legs 100% of the time, but another species of wolf that has, for some reason, they developed to walk on their hind legs more frequently.
That would make a lot more sense.
But obviously there can't be that many of them because there'd be way more accounts. I mean, there's way more Bigfoot videos and photographs than Dogman.
And Dogman's like only in Michigan for some reason.
No, it's everywhere. It's everywhere. We just went over the Michigan.
Yeah.
I mean, in our next episode, we'll probably be going over UK and Europe for Dogman.
Okay.
There are several extinct wolves. There are several recognized prehistoric wolves currently extinct, like the dire wolf, which is similar in size to the gray wolf. So it's still probably not big enough to be mistaken for a humanoid wolf unless it's just a gigantic one. Because like with almost every species, you have sightings of one animal that just happens to be way larger than the other of the same species. Kind of like humans too. Like you do have like 8-footers walking around, or 7-foot, 11-inch people. There's not a lot of them, but there's a couple, right? So could some of these cases just be mistaken giant wolves or prehistoric extinct wolves that aren't extinct? Because we see that in cryptozoology all the time. The establishment scientists say, oh, it's extinct, but then there's a bunch of sightings and those people get called crazy, and then eventually they actually capture one, and then they're like, oh, wait, maybe they're not extinct. So
What do you call that whole thing? It's
cryptozoology, yeah.
Because it's like weird animals? Is that what that
animals or creatures that are not officially recognized or that are stated to be extinct.
What currency do you think they use? Crypto?
Cryptocurrencies? Cryptids use cryptos? Do cryptozoologists prefer cryptocurrency over any other currency? That should be a new poll.
I like it.
Then there was also the Amphision, which was a 6-foot-long, 400-pound bear wolf creature, but not humanoid. So it just got traits of a bear and a wolf. Here's an actual interesting article from SasquatchStories.com. Is Dogman in the fossil record? When confronted with the concept of the Dogman, many people, even those inclined to believe in Bigfoot, simply shake their heads. In fact, many Bigfoot researchers tend to only accept the phenomenon either as a misidentification of ordinary wolves or coyotes, or at best, a type of Sasquatch with a pronounced face, but still a primate, like a baboon. Indications are that this baboon-faced Sasquatch actually does exist and is referred to as Type 3. However, most witnesses are obviously not looking at a hominid because so many talk of seeing backward bending legs, like a wolf, and even tails. So obviously something else is happening here. Perhaps what people fail to take into account is the incredibly long spans of time involved in the evolutionary process. If you believe in evolution, Maxwell and I discussed this on our aquatic Bigfoot episode. I don't know if you've checked that out yet, Johnny. So, do you believe...
It sounds better. I like it.
Do you believe in evolution, Johnny?
We'll talk about that another time.
So, according to the scientists, that's a good way of phrasing it, it took 4 million years for us to evolve. The canid family tree goes back much farther than that. Not measured in millions of years, but in tens of millions. After all, if bipedalism proved so successful for our ancestors, why could it not have proven just as successful for a distant canid ancestor? Is there any indication for this in the fossil record? Bearing in mind that the fossils themselves are very rare, only form in certain conditions, and procuring a full skeletal fossil record even more rare, there are actually very large gaps and multiple options for possible Dogman ancestors. Let's look at some of them. In the more recent past, very large wolves wandered the plains of North America. The tar pits hold literally thousands of their skeletons. They were the infamous dire wolf. These large canids wandered the plains and forests of America alongside regular wolves, mastodons, and bison. Back then, the grasses on the plains would have grown very tall and thick, perhaps prompting some carnivores to stand on their hind legs in order to get a better view.
What's the mastodon again?
Giant elephant. Hairy elephant with tusks.
That's different than the mammoth, woolly mammoth? Or
Why do you call it? Why do you call it woolly mammoth? Was it why?
Woolly mammoth? I don't know,
That's a good
because it
question. I
had
don't
woolly fur.
Oh,
Is
Are
it
they called
mammoth
that
or
woolly?
mastodon?
what are they called? That
I think it's the
woolly
same
mammoth?
thing.
Mastodon. It's the master don of the mafia. I was like- I guess it is an elephant, but it's a little different.
Or is
Okay.
the mastodon the ancestor of the woolly mammoth?
They have small ears. The mastodon.
That's the only difference.
I mean, look, it's kind of funny. You know, elephants usually have these big ass ears.
Oh,
So I guess they couldn't hear
Wait,
that.
so the
wait,
mastodon does
so
not
the-
have hair.
so the only difference is that hooking.
No, the mastodon looks like it does have hair. There's been supposed woolly mammoth spottings.
Yeah,
You
I've
hear
seen
that?
those. Yep.
Woolly mammoth has like crazier tusks.
Yeah, it's just curled up. Wait, is there?
All right, to answer your question from livescience.com, mammoth or mastodon, what's the difference? These woolly mammoths were not closely related to mastodons. Mammoths and mastodons have once roamed the earth together, but they represent two distinct species of the Proboscidean family.
Imagine riding one of those just to get around, like an Uber.
So mastodons were shorter and stockier and not nearly as furry. Okay?
Okay, because
Even though that wasn't directly related to Dogman.
then there's also that megalodon, right?
The giant shark?
They always end with a don.
Yeah,
the
they,
giant shark.
referring to the infamous dire wolf. These large canids wandered the plains and forests of America alongside regular wolves, mastodons, and bison. You know, it's an interesting point, though. How come people aren't spotting bison man? Or, like, some of these, or deer man, like some of these other creatures. Like, if they're just making stuff up, wouldn't people have throughout all of the years of human oral tradition of passing down stories? Like the Native Americans, they talk about Sasquatch. Or
What's
Bigfoot.
interesting is like every time they add like a man to it or whatever, it's like it's walking upright or something.
So if they're just making it
Wolfman.
up, why is nobody seeing bison walking upright?
Do they?
I don't think so. I think they could for like a jump or something. They could. I mean, not walk, but
What
they
else
could-
walks on like could walk? An elephant definitely not. Well,
Deer probably could.
maybe. But then would they call it deer man
I guess.
just because it walks on its hind legs?
I don't know.
It's just because like with the dog man, they say it had human features, right? And it had blue eyes and whatnot.
Some of them, yeah.
It reminds me when I was growing up. I heard these stories of this dog. No, they from. I mean, I heard it multiple times. It's weird how these stories like get around. Like from like 5 years old to 10 years old. Like I always heard of this story of a dog with a human head walking around. It was
That's
crazy.
real, or are you making that
It-
up right
it
now?
freaked. What?
You're making that up, or you
No, right now? No, I heard it.
you heard it there? That was an
I
actual
heard it
story?
growing up, 5 to 10 years old. Like people talked about it all the time.
Dog with a human head.
Dog man.
Dog with a human head,
So that's dog
walking
man.
around. Well, I guess you could say
Wait,
that,
dog
but-
with a human head. That's the opposite of dog.
yeah,
man.
yeah. It would
Dog
be-
man.
So is it
a
man
humanoid
dog?
with a dog head.
Man dog. I don't know.
Man dog. It's a man trying to be a dog, not the other way around.
That creeped me the fuck out because I was young as hell. I'm just saying. I don't know. It's kind of.
Back then, the grasses on the plains would have grown very tall and thick, perhaps prompting some carnivores to stand on their hind legs in order to get a better view. Recently, I heard a researcher report seeing a large coyote standing on its hind legs for quite some time in order to better observe the researcher. Is this how Dogman evolved? Regular dire wolves standing upright to see over the tall grasses of the plains for longer and longer periods. Reports of today's dogmen tell of them moving on all fours more than they do bipedally, but also be able to walk and run bipedally if they choose. Are dogmen simply relic dire wolves that, because of greater intelligence, maybe even due to bipedalism, excellent night vision, and nocturnal hunting behavior, and the ability to walk upright, have managed to survive and hide from the human onslaught? This theory is supported by many reports by many witnesses reporting horrible popping noises as the animals stood up like their joints were popping into different directions. It's almost like, I guess, a werewolf movie during a transformation. The problem with the dire wolf as a possible ancestor to the dogman is their size. They were not much bigger than the gray wolf, and their teeth don't match the slicing razor-sharp teeth reported from dogman encounters. So there must be another candidate. Perhaps the Epicyon haydeni, a meter tall at the shoulder, a fully grown Epicyon haydeni was pretty large and on its hind legs could potentially stand upright, almost as tall as some reported sightings of Dogman, but not as tall as many witnesses report, which is 9 to 12 feet. But it also lacks the razor-sharp teeth often ascribed by witnesses to these animals. Perhaps a better-suited candidate comes from another genus. How about the hyenodons?
It's like a hyena.
Most of the hyenodon genus, no relation to today's hyenas, were not anywhere near large enough to be a contender. But if we dig deeper, we find one called the hyenodon gigas, which stood over a meter tall at the shoulder. Incredibly, this monster's teeth were self-sharpening, designed in such a way that the upper and lower incisors crossed like a pair of scissors. This would fit the witness description of razor-sharp teeth. It was also very large. If standing upright on its hind legs, it would have towered over us and perhaps even threatened the power and size of a fully grown male Sasquatch, once again perfectly matching the witness descriptions. The Hyenodon gigas lived during the Oligocene epoch, which ended 23 million years ago. This epoch was notable for its many evolutionary changes over its short 11 million year period. I guess short compared to other epochs. It saw the appearance of many grasses and the herbivores that fed on them, the first elephants, early horses, etc. The following Miocene epoch would see the grasses producing extensive plains and incredibly huge herds of animals. It would have been an endless food source for such a large and powerful ambush predator armed with devastating weaponry more than capable of bringing down the largest herbivores. I suppose the emergence of these expansive grasslands led to an evolution of hunting technique and potentially bipedalism in these monstrous animals. Because of their size, all they had to do was stand on their hind legs and they could see their prey over the tops of the tall grasses. Naturally, it would have helped in stalking technique too, and eventually they learned to not only stand like bears do, but to stalk and even eventually run fully upright. Remember, compared to human developing bipedalism over only 4 million years, the hyenodon has had 23 million years since the Oligocene to evolve, adapt, and survive into the present. More than enough time to evolve to a more humanoid dogman. The problem is the fossil record is unbelievably scant. Who knows how many species, subspecies, and even entire genuses roamed the planet in the distant and not so distant past that we still have no idea existed. And who knows how many unknown species still hunt the night to this day, lurking in the shadows, hidden from our daytime eyes, but not from our darkest nightmares. So what do you guys think about that?
I like that theory where they stand up to look for prey
Over the tall grasses of the grassland? Yeah, it's pretty good.
It's kind of
They're
it
tall.
makes sense that
What?
Just a regular wolf is tall. Can't imagine those. You said over a meter?
Wait, you have photos
At
of
the
them
shoulder.
standing
At the
up?
shoulder.
Are you looking at photos of them standing up right now?
Yeah.
Oh,
or
no kidding.
videos, actually.
Oh, no kidding. Do they stand up for a long time? Or?
Well, he was kind of
Let me see.
hanging off of some guy's shoulders, but it's like that's over
oh,
6 foot.
Wow, he's huge.
Yeah.
So if they could do that themselves,
Damn.
that would be kind of weird, just seeing this huge wolf.
It's still not humanoid enough, though. That's the thing.
I know.
Like, it's mostly reported as a man with a dog's head, and the legs bend backwards, or the torso is humanoid. So
And
the
when you
torso
report,
is distinct.
and when you report things like that, and you actually specify that it looks like a human body, like it's you know what I mean? It's like I don't know. It's just
If I saw a dog or a wolf, whatever,
And
walking
stand
around,
up.
I wouldn't say dog man, or like I'd just be like,
Yeah.
it was just a wolf
but
walking
if
around
but
on
if
2
you
feet.
but if you can notice like a human, like you would say
It
that
must
that's
have
what
been.
it would.
It must have really stood out.
Yeah.
Like, wow, that was a human dog.
Yeah.
Okay,
And
so
how-
here is my favorite pick for what dog.
Do you have a
man-
number of how many how many have reported in history or?
I believe it's only hundreds of reports and not thousands, like Bigfoot.
Oh, okay.
99 of them came from Michigan.
Well, hundreds,
Okay.
maybe like 500 reports.
Okay, that's still a big number
Well,
for
Bigfoot
such a weird-
Bigfoot has like thousands
Oh, okay.
Damn.
or something like
Wow.
that. Yeah, thousands.
So it's a really small.
Yeah, Dogman is nowhere near reported as much as Bigfoot.
Yeah, it's like 5% almost.
So here's what my most likely candidate for Dogman is actually a baboon. So the article reminded me of Dinopithecus.
Okay, that's what it looks like.
Dinopithecus. That's
So-
some big teeth.
So it looks kind of humanoid because it's a baboon. So Dinopithecus was a primate genus of giant baboon as big as a grown man that lived during the Pliocene of South Africa. Males grew to 5 feet tall.
But see, those type of animals are in certain places.
You mean not Michigan?
Yeah.
Well, hold on. So it looks sort of like a big canid, but with a baboon face, so it does resemble a dogman. And, of course, the teeth. Perhaps the canid line is a red herring because a giant baboon kind of looks like a dog. And a giant baboon is also humanoid. So, and it's got, that snout-like appearance on the face.
Yeah.
So Maxwell and I talked about Gigantopithecus as being a possible explanation for Bigfoot because Gigantopithecus did exist. It's a giant hominid, ape-like man. So if we really have no way of knowing exactly how smart they were. So if they continue to evolve a little bit, that could be Bigfoot. Is Dinopithecus Dogman? Just looking because none of these other explanations don't quite add up. And I think Dinopithecus actually looks closer to Dogman than anything else. Or it could be a missing link of Dinopithecus.
Wait,
Or the next stage.
Gigantopithecus.
Gigantopithecus is the Bigfoot, possibly.
And that was that monkey ape thing you just showed.
That's the Dinopithecus.
What was the other one?
Gigantopithecus.
Hold on.
So Gigantopithecus is one
Gigantopithecus.
theory for the explanation of Bigfoot, that it's not extinct. Gigantopithecus survived.
Ooh, that's a big boy.
Yeah. So Dinopithecus, supposedly they only go to 6 feet, but 5 feet. But how would we know if it's a big one?
This is showing an example of 10 foot for Gigantopithecus.
Yeah, Bigfoot are usually reported 8 to 12 feet. So roughly in that range.
Damn.
How many of these were found?
Gigantopithecus? I don't know.
Yeah.
But anyway, we're
That's
talking about
huge.
Yeah, we're talking about Dogman now. So Dinopithecus, I think Dinopithecus could be an explanation, especially if they continued to adapt and they got smarter and slightly more humanoid. Or there could be a missing link if you believe, it all depends on how you believe in evolution. One species turning to another species as opposed to just adaptation. There's a bunch of different definitions for evolution, but Darwinian evolution is one species going to another species. So if you believe that, there would be linking species. Because a bird wouldn't just suddenly go to a human. There'd be steps in between.
Batman.
So, what do you guys think about that theory?
I like it.
All right, let's go to the scariest theory. So, if Bigfoot is the missing link in the evolutionary tree for humans, perhaps the Dogman is the missing link between an unknown human species and canines, which developed parallel to Homo sapiens, or even earlier. So, for those that believe in evolution, if there are many evolutionary paths for human development, ape, canids, aquatic apes, etc., perhaps the canid path died out, but a missing link remains, Dogman. So if there's a whole bunch of different species of humans, similar to Homo sapiens, some of them could have went aquatic from an aquatic ape tree. Some of them could have went from a canid tree and possibly gone extinct, except for the Dogman, which remains. That's kind of weird, right?
Yeah. So
What do you think about
aquatic
Aquatic Dogman? Oh, that's got to be our next episode.
aquatic Bigfoot had gills?
Aquatic Bigfoot. That's what Maxwell asked. Did you listen to our Aquatic Bigfoot podcast or no?
Yeah, I did. I just thought that was funny
Wait, I
when you
asked
asked
that-
that
I
question.
asked that.
You don't remember the questions you asked? Okay.
I thought that was funny when you asked about it. Did it have gills?
Wait,
you
you
breathe
heard
underwater?
that?
Yeah, I listened to it. That was funny. Had fins. Like...
All right. And this wouldn't be mind shock if we didn't go to paranormal theories as well.
Ooh.
So let's go to the spiritual or demonic explanations.
Insert mind shock zapping effect.
So let's look at the Inuit and Native American mythology. So an Amarok is a gigantic wolf in Inuit mythology said to stalk and devour any person foolish enough to hunt alone at night. Unlike wolves who hunt in packs, Amaroks hunt alone. Writing in the 19th century, Danish geologist and Greenlandic scholar Heinrich Johann Rink reported that the Greenlandic Inuit reserved the word Amarok exclusive for this legendary wolf, whereas other Arctic people use it to refer to any wolf. So, again, I mean, that's not so much spiritual paranormal yet. It's a legendary mythological wolf, which once again, depending on how you interpret mythology, whether it's literal or not, because if 10,000 years ago when they made the name for the wolf or whatever, it could have still existed. So to them, it wouldn't be a legend similar to Bigfoot. But are dogmen spirit animals of Native American people who scare off loggers and farmers or anyone else who kind of preys off the land? So are they an invocation of a spirit to kind of deter settlers who are cutting down trees or whatever? What do you think about that? Conjured spirit animals? No? Maxwell? No?
I don't know.
No thoughts. All right, so there was also, in the 1860s, the Cheyenne established a group of warriors known as the Dog Soldiers, or Dogmen. Native Americans would spend years studying or becoming one with their spirit animal, taking on the mannerisms of wolves or wild dogs. Allegedly, the Cheyenne Dogmen were all killed off by the U.S. Army. According to lore passed down from the elders, not all of them died. According to legend, some of the dogmen actually shape-shifted into dogs and now roam the woods and swamplands. It's worth noting that all witnesses of these half-dog, half-man beasts admit to feeling terrified there haven't been any known deaths attributed to dogmen, similar to Sasquatch. There actually have been a few, but unconfirmed. Kind of similar to Bigfoot, I think, again, it's difficult to say confirmed. People died, and they're supposedly killed by Bigfoot, but they could have been mauled by a bear or whatever. We don't know for sure. So there have been claims, but not a lot. That's what's interesting. It's not like there's a lot of people claiming that Bigfoot ripped off their arm or killed them. So the claims are very, very few. So in Native American belief, you must invite evil onto yourself. So these creatures would not be able to harm you unprovoked. So this isn't really a podcast for shapeshifters or skinwalkers or any of that paranormal stuff. We will save that for another podcast. But what do you think about that?
I know there was a TV show back in the day.
Dog Soldiers?
Was there?
I don't know.
It was called Animorphs.
Are you surprised you didn't see that one, Maxwell?
Animorphs?
Yeah.
I'm
Humans turning into animals.
I'm surprised I didn't. I'm not surprised because I don't really want to see it. But
I think it was like a kid's show. It wasn't really, or like a
Yeah, I don't
teenager
know.
show.
Also, so like obviously, I think you mentioned werewolf on the previous podcast, so like we'd have to do some werewolf comparisons. So what is Dogman in relation to a werewolf? I don't think anybody is claiming that a Dogman shapeshifts back and forth between human or not. But what if a Dogman is a werewolf in permanent werewolf form?
He got stuck. Forgot how to change back. Midway.
Not necessarily. If I mean, are werewolves real?
Of course. Not. I don't know.
So like, if werewolves are real, obviously we need to have a dedicated werewolf
wait,
podcast.
so werewolf, real quick, it's a human that turns into like a
Correct,
wolf,
during
right?
the full moon,
and
yeah.
then they just walk around as a normal
Kill-
wolf.
No, well, they
don't
it's
stand
a
up or anything, right?
They
Like a
do. It's a
gigantic-
giant.
Oh, they do.
It's a giant wolf. It's similar to Dogman, but again, I can't get like if you look up images of Dinopithecus, like from just the descriptions of the Dogman encounters and even some of the videos, even though they're blurry and photographs, to me it looks a little bit more baboon-like. Like I don't see the dog. It looks more baboon or bear-like. It's like a weird baboon bearish creature. So, I mean, so we just went over a bunch of different possibilities for what the Dogman could be. Evolutionary, and then of course, it could be interdimensional. Maxwell loves those interdimensional theories. Is it an interdimensional creature? And then, is it a ghost of a Dogman? A species that once existed that no longer exists, and if they were hunted to extinction by humans. There's also another interesting point. I've heard a few people talk about this, but not too many. Genetic memory. So if humans were once hunted and killed by creatures like Bigfoot or Dogman, there would be some of that genetic memory left over for you to be very, very afraid of like monsters or whatever, right? So, because genetic memory manifests different ways, people don't even realize it. Like we have so much genetic memory that we just kind of take for granted as part of our psychological process. Huh. So that's pretty interesting to think about also. What do you think, Maxwell?
Who's Cecil?
Genetic memory now?
Genetic memory?
Any final thoughts from anyone on the Dogman? We'll definitely be following up with more podcasts because this creature is pretty fascinating. And then with the advent of social media and cell phones, the reports are going up. So it's not, so is Bigfoot and Sasquatch.
Wait, the reports are going up for Dogman?
Yeah.
Really? Just recently?
In general.
How many this year?
I don't know. Go on the internet and you'll find a whole bunch. Whether they're true or not is a different matter. I'm talking about what's reported.
Let's go see it.
All right, we're going right now.
We got to meet up with that lady that's writing that book. The one
Dogman and Bigfoot. So,
Michigan.
If you like the podcast, you can donate to our PayPal. Just check the link in the description and make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. And if you want notifications of new videos we post, don't forget to hit that bell. You can also check out our Reddit, Facebook, Twitter, and Patreon. This is Bruce McGuire signing off.
Maxwell Powers.
Johnny Mills.
Have a good night. Welcome to MINDSHOCK. This is your host, Bruce McGuire, and as part of our Halloween episodes, we have a special guest in the house. A former government employee. I have not been able to nail down which exact agencies he has worked for, but he has agreed to join us on the podcast as well as some of the other podcasts and give his thoughts and views. So this is JR.
How are you?
How's it going? So once again, if you're not subscribed to our channel, make sure you subscribe and hit the bell for notifications and check out our other social media sites, Facebook, Reddit, and Twitter. So today's topic, we're going to be going over the Dogman government conspiracy. Is there a government cover-up about Dogman and its existence? If you've checked out our previous episode on Bigfoot, which I will be asking JR's thoughts on as well, now that we have him here. So what can you tell us about your work history, JR? Because how does someone know you didn't just work as like a janitor for the Park Service or something?
Well, I mean, I guess it could have been that I worked for, as a janitor for the Park Service. I mean, see, what a lot of people don't understand is that, working for the government is a very broad spectrum. The government is effectively the people, right? So as a government agent, and I'm not necessarily naming any particular organization that I worked for, but when you work as a government agent, you don't necessarily not work for a particular office. I mean, there's those movies that you see on TV where you wear a suit and you wear a tie and you carry a gun and you do all kinds of crazy stuff. And I know a lot of people that do that, but at the end of the day, I worked for the roles that I needed to work for in order to fulfill my particular obligations for the agencies that I worked for at that particular time.
And you've also said you've had connections with military personnel, or you worked in some kind of joint military operations with the government. What can you tell us, if anything, about that?
Well, there's a lot of organizations out there, we'll just throw one out, like DARPA. That's pretty big umbrella. I mean, there are people that work as janitors for DARPA. There's people that are fucking floating in space because of DARPA. So I work for various entities that may or may not be sidecar entities of other big organizations that are named purely for budgetary reasons.
Very political answer. What if someone was flat out to ask you, which alphabet soup agency have you worked for? What would you say?
I told them to go fuck themselves.
So you're not at liberty to discuss that?
No, I'm not at liberty to discuss that. I'm not going to discuss it with like some fucking like YouTube channel. No. I'm not at liberty to discuss that. I mean, like there have been people out there in the past that like have discussed certain things and done certain things, and now they're sitting in a fucking 7x5 box. So I mean, yeah, like no, I'm not going to go there with you. But I mean,
so
ultimately,
let me ask you this. I know you want to protect your family and everything, but why now? Why have you agreed to come out and say what you know or give your input? So I'm assuming you no longer work for these agencies because you're willing to do this now?
Well, you can assume whatever you want, but at the end of the day, I protect my family and everything. And, I've decided to speak out now because, we're in a political climate, especially with the advent of various people that were elected or unelected for various reasons, and other people that were put in positions of power that were not part of the whole executive branch of government, which everyone on TV has been completely focused with the executive branch of government. But there's been a lot of people appointed lately. The political climate in this country has changed drastically. And as a result, I feel that it's not necessarily telling people something that they didn't already know. It's verifying that they were right.
So if someone were to ask about shadow government or behind the scenes agencies that nobody knows about, or even the sort of taboo term, the Illuminati, would you be able to give any input on that, or are you going to avoid those questions completely?
Well, I'm not going to necessarily avoid them completely. I mean, obviously, I'm not going to give you the meat and potatoes, which is what you're craving. But what I'm going to say is that, there are those officials in this country that are elected, and there are those officials in this country that rise to the ranks. The ones that rise to the ranks are the ones that really hold the key to power because they're untouchable in a lot of ways, even by the people that are politically elected by the people of the United States. So as a result, there is a certain flavor that has developed over time as certain individuals that probably shouldn't have been promoted were promoted.
So let's cut to the chase of this specific podcast. Right before we get to the Dogman cover-up, can you tell us what you know about Bigfoot? Because I think you told me before that you did have some kind of interactions with the Park Service. So you know several individuals that have worked for the Park Service or in association with the Park Service. Can you tell us if there is, in fact, some kind of a cover-up for Bigfoot?
Well, I mean, before we get to the cover-up of Bigfoot, let me just say that, the government, in the Park Service, there are a lot of paramilitary training operations and various operations that take place within the quote-unquote Park Service. I think what the American people forget is that the easiest place to hide something is in plain sight. So, I mean, having a secret military organization like the CIA that makes these top-secret phone calls and has, special phones in their offices and completely, untransparent, that's actually more difficult for the government to hide things in front of the American people than something as simple as the Park Service. When you go to the park, you see people mowing lawns. You don't really think anything of it. You're there camping with your family. So there's actually a tremendous amount of things that, transpire through the Park Service, the National Science Foundation, the Department of Energy, because these organizations are actually very cut and dry, and people don't give it a second thought. So before we get to your question over Bigfoot, I'll just say that, yes, there are a lot of very strange, covert, and they look very innocuous to the American people through the Park Service. Because, after all, I mean, if you're a member of a government family, and if you know people that work for the government, the Park Service is not respected. They're considered the janitors of the fucking federal system. So there have been a lot of things regarding Bigfoot. The first thing is that, and we're just talking about in general, the government actively seeks species that are quote-unquote in question. And a lot of this has to do with just general biological modification. I mean, we all know about Bessie, the little sheep that was cloned and stuff. People watched it in the early 90s, and they were kind of oh wow, we can clone now. And then it's interesting. We don't talk about that anymore. We talk about, like, Trump and, like, how he called some woman a cunt. We don't really talk about, like, like, what the government does behind the scenes. And in reality, like, these projects that were started never stopped. So I mean, like, when you...
real quick, because I've been researching Bigfoot for quite some time now. We've done several podcasts on Bigfoot, and I did one where is Bigfoot a genetic experiment, where we explored this topic. And it sounds like you're saying that Bigfoot could have been some kind of government experiment, either from an actual Bigfoot creature that was modified or from other creatures that were modified, which created Bigfoot. Is that the case?
Can't really disclose the full extent of everything, but I can say that genetic modification is something that the government has been actively involved with for many, many years. Under the Reagan administration, we started cloning vegetables. To this date, in the 1930s, we used to have over 100 species of corn. In this year, in 2018, there are less than 4 species of corn that exist that are sold in, grocery stores across the United States. And the reason why is for genetic modification. So when we talk about cloning and we talk about the alteration of people, I think people really need to sit back and think about it, because, we look at the human genome like it's this really big instrument, but we have computers today that can calculate millions of years into the future of where our planet will be positioned in space. And as far as I'm concerned, I mean, the space program is a completely different podcast, but, like, when you think about the level of calculations and, the level of mathematics involved in that, cloning is really not that complicated.
Well,
when you look at
the quick tie-in here, not to interrupt you, but what are your thoughts on the ancient Greeks? Because I've discussed this on several podcasts before. Do you believe they had advanced technology and their cloning or genetic modification resulted in things like the Minotaur or the Cyclops or all these monsters and creatures of antiquity? Is history kind of repeating itself, and is that what Bigfoot is?
Well, I mean, like, when you really look at, like, the span of entire history has repeated itself multiple times. It could be put into question whether or not the people of antiquity had the same technology that we had, or the same type of, they didn't necessarily have, like, silicon microchips like we do today. However, the human brain is pretty amazing when you think about what we're able to create from nothing in a very short span of time. And, I mean, based on the laws of science, we've, at a maximum peak, have been out of the jungle for like 50,000 years, and even that is greatly, greatly disputed by many, many scientists who, they can't peg down when we started fire. They can't peg down so when, the ancient Egyptians, quote unquote, might have had batteries, or the ancient Greeks were able to genetically modify something. And you also have to understand that this is all said without the ideas that there's no extraterrestrial force that's integrated into that equation, just using what we have on our planet and not any exterior force. It's entirely plausible.
Not to go all over the place, but I know our listeners are going to probably be mad if I don't ask the question on extraterrestrials. What can you confirm or deny regarding extraterrestrials, either interdimensional or interplanetary? Because you just rattled that off like you know something.
Well, I can't really, again, I'm not going to get into, concrete specifics. And if I were to get into more specific line of questioning, it would be for a separate video. But let's just put it this way. We're amongst billions of galaxies. Obviously, we're looking through the looking glass because there's a point in which our technology fails to reach other galaxies. The universe doesn't end at the end of a telescope. And within that spectrum of galaxies, there are planets. And according to science, there are millions of planets within our own galaxy, and that's one galaxy of billions of galaxies. So, I mean, just use your fucking brain, and you could, fucking answer that question.
Well,
I mean, I don't really need to go there. I mean,
a lot of my personal research is also, it's not just physical space. The amount of dimensions is theoretically infinite. So there could be, on the spectrum of dimensions, there could be interdimensional entities sitting right next to us right now that we would never know about, of various intelligence, correct?
Well, yeah, I mean, I would say that that's very accurate. I mean, and a lot of people, again, not to go back to trying to sound mysterious or anything, but like organizations like the National Science Foundation, they spend, I mean, hundreds of millions of dollars on, research into mathematical dimension stuff, and then those papers mystically end up in like some sort of like fucking army base, and like we don't hear anything else about that because they paid the people that wrote those papers, and then those people, they go on to like run universities, so they don't really give a shit. At the end of the day, like people don't understand, like like when you go to college, you're just so eager to like be that top dog in college, and you're so eager to do the research. You don't really look at like where the research is going. The research doesn't stop with just you. The research doesn't just stop with the people that funded your project. You have to look at the people that funded your project. If IBM is paying you $10,000 a year to do some sort of doctoral research paper, you have to ask yourself, why is this third-party corporation paying me this money for this research? Is it really for the good of mankind? I mean, that's the shtick that they make you sign at the bottom, but at the end of the day, I mean, they're not in the charity business.
So follow the money is a very, very good saying in getting to the truth of anything to do with government, right?
Well, it is, but I mean, that's why the IRS is there, to stop you from searching for where the money actually goes.
All right, well, let's get focused here. So Bigfoot. So can we rule out, I know you're not going to be able to answer things super specifically, but in your opinion, from what you've seen or people that you've talked to, I know you can't tell us how you got the information exactly. Is there more than one explanation for Bigfoot? Is Bigfoot Gigantopithecus or some kind of hominid that survived, borderline extinct, and also separately, also a government experiment? So certain people that spot Bigfoot, they're spotting the government experiment or genetically modified creature, and in other instances, it's simply a leftover hominid of some kind.
Well, I mean, again, I'm not going to get into, like, the necessary specifics of, like, government paperwork or, like, minutia. But I will say that the ancient Greeks, they were very good at a certain level of, in their own time, which is thousands of years ago, mixing species in order to come up with a subspecies that effectively suited their needs for their era. I will say that when we look at Bigfoot today, I think a lot of people are hung up on the lore of Bigfoot, that it's this big hairy ape that walks through the jungle. We're not necessarily, like when you think of Bigfoot, you're not thinking of like a super soldier that will be able to take care of opposing government. These types of technologies are designed in a laboratory under very specific circumstances, and it's not necessarily something where like the government just creates this and let's just let it run around a national park and see what happens. These types of experiments take place in controlled environments that, like, hypothetically don't even exist, but do because of Google Maps, but they don't. And then, you have to also ask yourself, I mean, for example, Google Maps, there are many military bases that haven't updated the, geography of the satellite imagery in over 8 or 9 years. So I mean, like,
well, not to mention, I think people that do look at Google Maps, they see clearly photoshopped or blanked out areas many places. And they don't get updated.
Yeah, of course. I mean, and what a lot of people don't understand is like these third-party. I mean, Google is like a really big company, and people look at it like it's like, it actually is running the internet, but it's not. The government created the internet in the 1970s, and when you look at Google Maps, it's an extrapolation of NASA Whirlwind, which was a federally funded project. So, again, who are they really getting their information from? A lot of these big megalo corporations that talk about advancement are receiving not just funding. I think funding is kind of like the currency that keeps Americans blind from the information that's transpiring. I mean, who builds our nuclear warheads? Boeing. But you wouldn't think about that when you're in the airport getting on an airplane. Gee, I'm sitting in this little cabin.
I did not know that.
Oh, no, I mean, look that up. I mean, and your viewers should look that up. I mean, don't take my word for it. I mean, I'm sitting here being very vague as, a former employee, but like when you look at it, like Boeing receives billions of dollars in contractual obligations to build nuclear warheads. I mean, when you're sitting in first class flying, intercontinental and being handed pedicures, you're not thinking about the fact that like that company is being paid to do that. The same thing goes for many, many other organizations in America, and not even America, but also Europe. Europe is heavily involved with America. I think that a lot of people don't understand that there is no necessarily big brother. When we talk about shadow governments, we talk about many governments shaking hands behind the scenes. That's what shadow government is.
Okay, so I'm going to stir the pot even more because now that I got you on, I'm really curious about a lot of things. I also did a podcast on Bigfoot ghosts where I explored the theory that Bigfoot, either whatever it is or was, it could possibly be the ghost of Bigfoot haunting the forest and scaring people, because there's usually not fatalities. Most of the times fatalities are not associated with Bigfoot sightings. So what is your take on Bigfoot, possibly Bigfoot or ghosts in general, and then also what is being spotted could be possibly a Bigfoot ghost, and that's why all of this new digital technology and digital phones and digital cameras, they can't capture it similar to ghosts, whereas if you use some kind of old analog film process, you might be able to capture it, like the Patterson film, which is very, very detailed. And also, what do you think could Bigfoot also be an interdimensional creature that's from another dimension and has nothing to do with us? And then, of course, I've also speculated this. It would be a logical fallacy to go with some kind of black or white option, whereas Bigfoot is only this. Is it possible that all these things are versions of Bigfoot that are being seen? I know I gave you a lot there.
Well, let me just put it to you this way. I mean, science has told you from, kindergarten that, we see in 3 dimensions. But we've never extrapolated on, the dimensions of that we can see beyond the 3rd dimension. That may or may not have government interest involved. I will say that, when you look at, projects like the Manhattan Project, again, we tried time travel, we tried interdimensional transport. Again, we say those things in the past tense as if we didn't continue those projects. I'll say that, again, interdimensional beings, there are a lot of strange things on this planet that we're, quote-unquote, discovering. Who's to say that they didn't, just suddenly warp here or warp out of here? I mean, when you look at extinction, who's to say that a particular part of the animal kingdom is necessarily extinct? It's extinct within this dimension. And the same thing exists with, creatures that just suddenly appear out of nowhere. I mean, we've been traveling the seas, hypothetically, for thousands of years, according to science. That said, we're still discovering creatures of the sea to this day. And it's not necessarily the depth. It's not necessarily, again, when you look at creatures and the ability to go interdimensional, the very fact that we're able to promote the romanticism of becoming, interdimensional or going interdimensional means that it probably hypothetically exists within the scope of our universe. I can tell you that it does. I can't tell you the specifics of how I know that, but I can tell you that there are billions and billions and billions of dollars spent not only on interdimensional idealism, but also time travel. There's an extensive amount of money spent on the idea of being able to go back into time.
Is it possible for you to clarify at this time whether it's just money being spent or if any of these projects have actually been successful?
And I'm not going to pull the I can't talk about it card. I'm going to tell you that spans beyond the scope of I don't know card. When you look at DARPA, there are hundreds of millions of dollars. I mean, we're talking about billions of dollars spent on wax paper that's sent into the upper ionosphere. No shit. I mean, you think I'm joking. I mean, I'm telling you, they call it, the $10 million wax paper for a reason. They have airplanes that fly into the upper ionosphere just to capture molecules on a little piece of wax paper. It looks like the shit that mommy makes cookies on, that they stick out of an airplane. at like Mach 1 to catch molecules in space to determine like what's going on up there. And
that's absolutely fascinating, and I don't mean to reel you in a little bit because I think all of our listeners will probably enjoy hearing about the multitude of knowledge that you have. But this is a specific Bigfoot podcast. So you think it is, just to clarify again, is it possible that Bigfoot is an interdimensional entity, nothing to do with the government? And you've already said that I don't want to misquote you, but you've basically said that there might be some kind of government genetic modification on a Bigfoot type creature that is going on. So do you know if the government has any involvement in tracking or knowledge of an interdimensional Bigfoot as well? Or is that...
I'm not necessarily at liberty to discuss like specific incidents that I've been privy to, just because I do worry about my personal safety. But I will say that there have been things that have been hunted in the forest by, and especially within the special operations community. And ironically, it's not like you would think, they sent a bandit out there with a pitchfork to go find something. A lot of these things are actually stumbled upon. And what happens is they end up in a fucking coffin or, a sealed, container with a confidential security clearance sticker on them. And then they get shipped off and no one ever hears about it again. So, yes, I will say that I think that the government, even though that they pretend it's just a bunch of lore and bullshit, lore and bullshit has run a lot of things in this world, even before it predates America. Lore and, suspicion and the unknown drives human beings forward. I think that a lot of money has been spent on the Bigfoot project, and I think that, a lot of things that relate to Bigfoot and the genetics involved in those creatures, specifically the fact that, they might have, dual organs and, there might be, medical, knowledge based around them, such as, cloning organs, have given rise to a lot of government funding being spent on said Bigfoot. It's...
Okay, and I know we also were supposed to discuss Dogman. I know there's not a lot of information about Dogman, and that's one of the questions I specifically had for you. If you had any specific things you could say about Dogman, or is this some kind of an ancient creature that just didn't reproduce as often as Bigfoot, so the cases are rarer? And what are your thoughts on, some people think it's actually some kind of demonic creature. I don't know if that would fall under interdimensional or whatnot, but people describe the Dogman as absolutely not of this earth and completely different than Bigfoot. It's more insane. It's like a werewolf. It's much more vicious. Some people think Bigfoot are like benevolent keepers of the forest. There's Native American myths and legends about these creatures that describe them as kind of spiritual, whereas the Dogman is always on the opposite end of the spectrum. It's viewed as this ravenous beast that just kills indiscriminately and is just straight out of hell. So what do you think about why it's not quite as widespread as Bigfoot? But sightings are popping up now. And there's even stories of even government, those special forces teams. I actually covered that on my previous podcast with special forces teams being called in to exterminate Bigfoots. But some of them don't even want to deal with Dogman because it's just a completely different animal and they don't want anything to do with it. What do you know about Dogman and what can you tell us?
Well, I can tell you this. First of all, Dogman has been around for multi-millennia. If you look at the ancient Egyptians, it was worshipped as a god. Second of all, ironically, it was regarded as one of the spirits of death. So, that in and of itself is kind of interesting. Additionally, I would also say that, when you look at that type of creature, will I say it doesn't exist? No. Do I have any personal government knowledge of them, having a physical carcass or anything of that nature? No, I don't, honestly. But that said, I wouldn't be surprised if funding and various resources weren't spent on trying to acquire one.
So just You don't have any
Wait,
direct
wait,
knowledge.
to go back to your question, like special forces won't touch that. You also have to understand that Egypt is in the Middle East. Recently, our government has had a large presence within the Middle East. And I think that, again, you don't have to be a special agent or have any kind of special knowledge to understand the basic principles of government. If you've ever worked within the federal government, you'll understand that, like people from janitors all the way up to Secret Service men or whatever, they all have, a certain compartmentalized knowledge. Having never been deployed particularly to the area of Egypt, I've been deployed to the Middle East, but having not been deployed to that particular region, I can't necessarily say that I've ever come across one. But that said, I wouldn't discount any potato peeler or, simple Marine that was just, operating a weapon to say that they haven't. Because,
I was actually referencing within the U.S. the Dogman. Even U.S. Special Forces within the U.S. don't want to touch Dogman. The ones that have spoken out, even anonymously, that they have hunted Bigfoot, they said anytime there's Dogman involvement, they want out of there and nothing to do with it. I wasn't specifically talking about the other areas of the world. That is a future podcast, and we will be going over Dogman in other countries because it's not just Michigan, it's not just the U.S. But yeah, I meant within the U.S. I should have clarified that.
Well, regarding, my involvement within Michigan, it relates mainly to specialized organizations that exist within the U.S. Navy. I mean, not U.S. SEALs. I'm not a Navy SEAL or anything like that. But I have worked very closely with very high-level, security personnel that work within the U.S. Navy that are based in Michigan. And I will say that, again, I don't have a lot to comment on that particular entity, but to say that it doesn't exist, I find that, it's funny. A lot of people in this world, the ones that say, oh, well, I saw this or I saw that, they're immediately discredited as morons. Ironically, they not only become the people that are the salt of the earth, but they're the people that actually push our society forward. So for anyone to say that they've seen that or they've had any kind of experience or they don't want to deal with that, I would be interested to talk to someone. I would, because, the fact that they're even being discredited, is intriguing to me because, one thing you have to understand about the government, there's a lot of people in the government that say a lot of bullshit, but there's also a lot of scumbags in the government that don't give a shit. They just want their paycheck. Those people get to the middle level. They don't ever go above that. They don't ever go below that. The people that, end up being the high-level people are normally yes men. They're vested. It's, the people sitting in the watchtower, that, see a fire in the forest. They're the ones that you really want to believe in the government. It's the ones that are just mowing the lawn and come across something. They're the ones you really want to believe. Do you want to believe me? Probably not, because I do have a lot of special training and I have a lot of experience dealing with special operations people. So on a channel like YouTube, I'm probably a dime a dozen. So do you want to believe me? Probably, but you're not gonna. But to the people that are mowing a lawn somewhere and come across a particular incident one time in their career and it happens to be Dogman, I would believe them because they're probably right. Why would you fucking make that up? What do they have to gain?
That's actually been something that I have pointed out on many podcasts. People, there's nothing in it for them. It's not like they wrote books and went on TV. They gave their account once, and they said they didn't even want to talk about it. And usually it's 10 or 20 years later when they're not even enlisted anymore, and they just want
because they're afraid of being terminated in the government, especially and I say the government, a lot of people are just oh, the government. When you work for the federal government, if you say anything out of the ordinary and you don't have pictures or, an account or it's not someone receiving a medal, when you give a story like that to one of those people, you're immediately terminated, you're immediately shunned, you're immediately discharged. And, your entire family and your livelihood is on the line. So I could understand that. Again, in my current situation, I've dealt with a lot of shady stuff. I do have a compartmentalized clearance. So am I validated by a lot of people? Yes. Is that good for the American people? No, because, you know, I'm part of that cult, effectively, that is supposed to remain hidden and behind the scenes. So, you know, do I expect your viewers to believe me? Absolutely not. You know, and that's, you know, but I want to actually, like, give some sort of truth to the foundations of what the government is.
MindShock is all about exploring mysteries, exploring every theory and every avenue. Because how do you know what the truth is if you don't know the truth? So hopefully most people out there will be open-minded enough to at least consider the possibility of what you're talking about. And just to sum up today's podcast, I hope everybody got a lot out of that because I learned quite a bit. So just to sum it up, you're saying that Bigfoot is possibly, there's genetic engineering involvement on the side of the government, and Dogman you don't know a whole lot about, but it could also be either a real creature that has nothing to do with the government, or possibly also some kind of genetically engineered government entity that's even more vicious and insane, and a Bigfoot 2.0 sort of, that they
I'm saying that, you know, based on the fact that, like, you even know that it exists, if it does, and if they found it, there's vials of its DNA sitting in a laboratory somewhere. If they haven't found it yet, that doesn't necessarily mean that, I mean, they're never going to disclose that they actually did find it. I know for a fact that there have been apes that are beyond the genus of human being that have been found, and that there are particular scientific things that have taken place. Regarding Dogman, I'm not 100% sure, but you also have to look at, like, the animal kingdom and the fact that things breed with things that aren't necessarily the same species, and derive your own opinion of that. You know, I'm not really going to go into specifics over creatures beyond the two that you've mentioned, but I will say that there have been a lot of things, you know, that have crossbred that the government has DNA on. And those things are actively being pursued in laboratories for the benefit of mankind for pharmaceutical reasons, and also for military and paramilitary, you know, reasons. The government is about its own self-preservation. So, yes.
All right, well, thanks so much for joining us, and I know I'm looking forward to getting your thoughts on quite a plethora of other topics. We cover the paranormal, true crime. I know you have insider knowledge on Jonestown, and we will be starting a podcast series on Jonestown, because just from speaking with you briefly, you've brought up stuff that I never even heard of in relation to Jonestown. So a lot of good things coming on the MindShock podcast. If you like our podcast, you can donate to our PayPal. Just check the link in the description. And, of course, make sure you are subscribed. And if you like the video, hit the like button. And feel free to share all our content throughout social media. This is Bruce McGuire signing off.
This is JR tapping out. I'll talk to you guys later.
Have a good night.